Welcome to Paycheck for Life, Sarah's new and mid-career employee webinar. In this webinar, we're assuming that you're either a new employee or you're somewhere in the middle of your career, which is why we called it the new and mid-career employee webinar. The, the theme there is that you are not yet near retirement. So you have retirement as a ways away, which is a good thing because it means you have plenty of time to plan for your retirement. So what I'm going to do in this seminar is I'm going to tell you all the things that you might want to know about doing that planning. And since you're curious enough about retirement planning to watch this, you might have some questions already. Questions like, what do I need to know about my pension? Do I need to do anything? And if I need to do something, what is that? Well, I think I know about 95% of the questions that you're going to ask because I've been doing this for 17 years. And so I've arranged what I think you're going to ask, the answers to the questions I think you're going to ask into the form of this checklist. So we're going to go through these topics during the course of this webinar. I'm going to help you understand a little bit about your Sarah membership, and we'll talk about some retirement basics. Then we'll move right into understanding pension math. And it's super simple. If you're not a math person, don't worry. It's not complicated. As part of that discussion, what I want to do is talk about a little bit about our retirement formula, and then I will focus also on purchasing service credit to help boost what comes out of that retirement formula. And then we'll move into helping you get a precision pension estimate to estimate your future pension that you can expect to collect from a Sarah when you retire. And then we will talk about understanding retirement eligibility. So at some point in the future, you're going to become eligible to retire. And until that point, you can't actually retire. We'll talk about that. Um, we will talk about some additional benefits like healthcare and death benefits. I will help you designate your beneficiary or beneficiaries for your Sarah death benefits. And then we will move into the last two topics, which is the first of which is understanding some career planning options. And what I mean by that is that at some point in the future, you're going to stop working for your public employer that you're currently working for that gives you the Sarah membership. What are your options regarding your Sarah membership at that point? So we'll talk about that. And then that will take us right into making a retirement planning picture. And what I mean by that is we'll take a little peek into the future and we'll look at your possible retirement income in the future. And then we'll come back to the present to see what moves we might want to make sure that that picture is the best it can possibly be. And as part of that discussion, we'll talk about starting a 457B account to save a little additional money toward retirement. Okay, and that'll take us about the entire 3 hours. So let's jump right in. Let me first help you understand some retirement basics. First off, let me tell you about the answer to this question, who is a Sarah? In one sense, a Sarah is this acronym that stands for the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association. There are about 90 plus people that work at a Sarah, so I have about 90 or so colleagues. We're all county employees, like many of you. And our entire job is to provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to our members. That's you. You are a part of the who that is a Sarah because you're a member of a Sarah. And you're a member of a Sarah because of the position that you work in and who you work for. You work in a retirement eligible position and you had to at least start out full time in that retirement eligible position. You can go down to part time later. That's totally fine. But you had to at least start out full time in that retirement eligible position, working for one of the 6 public employers in Alameda County that use a Sarah to provide retirement benefits to their employees. So if you work in one of these 6 places in that retirement eligible position, you're automatically an Sarah member. And in fact, your membership is mandatory, so you have no choice. So it's automatic and mandatory. As an Sarah member, you pay into a Sarah's fund with every paycheck, and that's known as your employee contribution. So if you look at your pay stub, you'll see in the before tax deductions column, there's a line and you see some money coming out. It might say retirement, it might say a Sarah, and you see some money coming out of each and every check that you receive and it comes out on a before tax basis. And that money goes into a Sarah's fund every time you get paid. And every time that happens, your employer also makes a contribution on your behalf. So you're paying into the system, your employer is paying into the system. We don't want that money to just sit around and collect dust. We have a professional investment department that will invest that money all over the world in a diverse array of investments with the goal of earning interest. And we do earn over long periods of time a significant amount of interest. And it's these three sources of income that give us this big pool of money that we call a Sarah's fund. So why are we doing this? Why are we collecting all this money and investing all this money? Why are we trying to earn all of this money? Well, that is because you, throughout your entire career, throughout your entire membership with Acera, you are earning more and more credit toward retirement the longer that you work. And you're earning credit in three categories, which I will talk about when I talk about the retirement formula. And so you're earning more and more credit throughout your entire career with the expectation that at some point in the future, you are going to stop working and stop earning credit toward retirement and you're going to retire and you're going to start collecting the retirement that you've earned in the form of a monthly retirement allowance that you receive every month for the rest of your life. It's kind of an amazing system. You're going to get your payment from Acera each and every month for the rest of your life. You cannot outlive your retirement. It's kind of amazing, and pensions are special in this way. You participate in what's called a defined benefit pension plan, which means kind of two things. One, the benefit that you receive, that monthly retirement allowance for life, is defined by this formula that is very predictable, and I'll show you what the formula is in a little bit. That means that you can get extremely precise projections of your future payment from Acera now and throughout your career. You can do as many projections as you want. And so you can come to expect a certain amount of money that you will be paid from Acera based on the credit that you've earned in the system, and that payment is guaranteed income for life. So it's an amount of money that you can plan for and that you can count on for the rest of your life. Private employers do not do this much anymore. And this is kind of a side note that I'd like to point out. Another reason that Acera in particular is special is that the way that the formula works out and the way that you're paid out, it just so happens that when you retire from Acera and you start drawing that lifetime monthly pension, we're actually going to give you back all your money within the first 3 to 5 years of retirement. And so let's say that you're retired another 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 years that you live past that first 3 to 5 retired years. That it's like this kind of amazing bonus that you get because you participate in a defined benefit pension plan where you have guaranteed income for life. Now, really what happens is your employee contributions are paying for a chunk of it, that first 3 to 5 years. Then the employer contributions are paying for the next chunk, but it's actually the investment earnings, because we're investing your money over your entire career and for the rest of your life, that pay 3/4 of your lifetime pension. Okay, now I just want to point out before I move on this other side note regarding terminology. I will you've probably already heard me throw around a bunch of terms: retirement allowance, pension, retirement benefit. These are all synonyms for the same concept: pension allowance, pension benefit, retirement benefit. These are all synonyms for the same concept, that you're collecting a payment from Acera every month for the rest of your life based on the credit that you earned toward retirement when you were working. Okay, so that's kind of basically how Acera works. I mean, that's the meat of it. So let's get into some details. And before I get into the details, I want to show you this pension milestone chart because I think it will help illuminate your understanding on a lot of the topics that we're going to cover regarding planning for your future retirement and how we calculate your pension. So let me walk you through these real quick. These are the milestones that you can expect to see during your membership with the Sarah throughout your career. Okay, so we have first your date of hire. This is your first day of work in your retirement eligible position. So it's the date of hire into that full-time retirement eligible position. Okay, that's milestone one. Then for 4 of our 6 employers, 2 weeks goes by. And the first day of your second pay period is your date of entry into Acera. This is your first day of Acera membership. This is the day that you start earning credit toward retirement. Now, for Livermore Area Recreation and Park District and the Housing Authority, there is no 2 week lag. Your date of hire into the full time retirement eligible position is your date of entry into Acera. Okay, so now you're an Acera member. What happens? Well, you start earning credit toward retirement as you work. And I mentioned that you earn it in 3 categories. One of those categories is called service credit, and it's basically time worked, and it's measured in years. So if you work for 5 years full time, or the equivalent of 5 years full time, you earn 5 years worth of service credit with Acera. And once you earn that 5 years, you're considered vested in the retirement system. Vesting is kind of a loose concept. It kind of means guaranteed. What happens is that at 5 years, you start being able to unlock the ability to collect some of the guaranteed benefits, the vested benefits that you've earned during your membership with Acera. Okay, so what happens next? We have the next milestone, which is that at some point after you become vested, you become eligible to retire through some combination of your years of service credit and your age. There are a few different combinations that will get you there. I'll show you what those are later on in the presentation. This is the first day that you could physically retire from Acera if you want to, because this is the first day that you're eligible. Many people do not retire on this day. I would say the vast majority of people keep working past retirement eligibility because the more credit you earn in the system, the higher that retirement allowance will be once you retire. And I'll show you how that works in a few minutes. So that's why I've left a gap here between retirement eligibility and the next milestone, which is your last day on payroll with your employer. This is also known as your termination date. This is the day that you leave your employer, and this is the day that you stop earning service credit in the retirement system. Now, we have the next milestone, which is your retirement date. And the reason I've overlapped these two is because a lot of people will go straight from active work into retirement. So they'll leave work one day and then the next day they'll be retired. So a lot of people do that. Now, you don't have to do that necessarily. You could stop working and you could defer your retirement to a later date. And that is becoming what we call a deferred member, which means you're no longer working here. You're not retired yet. You're in an in-between category and you can retire later out of deferred status. And we will talk about all that when we get to the career planning options in the second half of the presentation. So for some of you, there will be a gap between these 2 days. But for a lot of you, you'll just work your entire career here for your employer and you will go straight into retirement. Okay, now retirement, your first day of retirement, this is the date that you choose. You tell us when you're ready to retire and you fill out a retirement application and you retire. And on your retirement date, this is the day that you start collecting that lifetime retirement that you've earned throughout your career. And you're going to get it each and every month for the rest of your life until your death. And that's when your retirement payments stop. Now, there's one more milestone on the chart, and that is because at the time of retirement, you have the opportunity to name a beneficiary for a continuance. A beneficiary is somebody who gets benefits. A continuance is just a continuing monthly payment after your death. And in many cases, the beneficiary gets the payment, the continuing payment for the rest of their life, every month for the rest of their life. So if that's the case, then we would continue paying your beneficiary until their death. And that would conclude, that's when their payments would stop. And that would conclude Acera paying out all of the benefits we owe to you and your beneficiaries. Okay. So just a couple more words about vesting and what that means. I said it means guaranteed. Um, that it happens with 5 years of service credit with Acera. That also will include reciprocal service credit. Reciprocity is where you used to work in another public retirement system in California, and you have left that job, you come to work here, and then you link that pension system with Acera because it's a separate pension system, but you link them together and it gives you some synergistic effects. And one of those is that the 5 years of service credit you've earned with all linked systems combined gets you over the vesting requirement. I will go into reciprocity at length when I talk about career planning options, but I just wanted to mention that when we're talking about vesting. And I said it means guaranteed. Where does the guarantee come from? The guarantee comes from state law. State law governs everything Acera does. It tells us how to calculate everything, how to run everything. And so the guarantee comes from state law, and the guaranteed benefits, the vested benefits, are your monthly retirement benefit for life, that retirement allowance, also known as your pension benefit, an annual cost of living adjustment, which is a percentage increase to your retirement allowance, and a $1,000 lump sum death benefit. Now there are other death benefits available, depending on there's different choices when you go to retire, different retirement options that give different amounts of benefits, death benefits to different beneficiaries. So that's included as well, but we don't really cover that in this webinar. So I'd just like to point out this $1,000 lump sum benefit is a vested benefit. And then somebody's asking, is vesting tied to a 401k? If I had a prior 401k with another employer, can I combine it together with a Sarah? You cannot. So any 401k that you previously have is entirely separate from a Sarah and cannot be linked or combined with a Sarah benefits. And it's pretty much a entirely different system. A 401k is like you're saving money away in a in a job working for a private employer over the years and investing it over the years. And the pot of money is growing, and that's like a finite amount of money that can run out. Whereas a SARA is a defined benefit pension plan. So the amount that you pay in to the system actually has no bearing on what you get paid. You earn credit in other categories, which I'll show you in a minute. And then we pay you every month for the rest of your life. Now, when we get to the 457B discussion, the 457B plan that your employer offers, which is kind of like a 401k but for public employees, you can save additional money in your 457B, and that's a separate system from Masera, but we will talk about that because it is a good topic to talk about when we're talking about retirement planning. But it is a separate system from Masera. But when we get there, our 457B expert will talk about whether you may want to roll over your pre-tax money from your 401k into your 457B account or not. So you could kind of combine those as well, but we will get to that when we talk about the 457B stuff. You're welcome. Okay, and somebody's talking about beneficiaries and death benefits should you die before you retire. We will go through all that in detail a little bit later, so I'll save that question. And then regarding somebody's asking what percentage your employer contributes to your retirement plan. You can see that if you go out to our website. So I'm not going to cover that, so I'll cover it right now. If you go to our website, actually, I think the best way to do it is type insera.org/contributions. And this takes you to a page that talks about your employee contributions. It gives you some average rates, and then you can look at your actual individual employee rate based on your tier. We'll talk about your tier in a minute. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's an employer contributions link here, and it will link over to the employer contribution rates. And so you can see exactly what those are, depending on which employer you're in and which tier you're in. And again, we'll cover your tier in just a minute. You're welcome. And somebody's asking, do you have to be vested in the other public employee position to basically establish reciprocity and link them together? You do not. And we will cover that when we talk about reciprocity. So I'll save that question for a little bit later. Okay, let me tell you about your tier. You are in one of these tiers. All of you are in one of these tiers. And your tier is determined by your date of entry into Acera. Now, first, let me help you figure out which timeline to look at here. If you're a safety member, which is a sheriff's deputy or probation officer or other sworn officer, you're looking at the bottom timeline. Now, anyone who's not a safety member is a general member. So if you're a general member, you're looking at the top timeline unless you're a general member who works for the Housing Authority or a general member who works for Livermore Area Recreation and Park District. And then you look at the timeline for your employer. So the way this works is that if you enter a SARA before the cutoff date for each tier, it puts you in the earlier tier. So if you had entered before July 1st, 1983 as a general member, that would have put you in tier one. Not a lot of tier one members left. That was a long time ago. Most of them have retired. So if you entered SARA July 1st, 1983, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, that would have put you in tier two. If you entered a SARA January 1st, 2013 and beyond, that puts you in tier four. And that is the case with all the timelines. You'll note for housing authority people, there's a different tier one cutoff. For LERPD, there's no tier two, there's a tier three, and there's a different tier one cutoff. And the safety members have three tier twos. And if you entered safety membership between October 17th, 2010 and December 31st, 2012, you had the choice of Tier 2C or Tier 2D. And if you didn't make the choice, then you were defaulted into one of the tiers. Now, if you don't remember which date of entry, what your date of entry into a SARA is exactly, or you don't know which tier you're in, or both, the best way to figure that out is to log into your account on our website. Okay. So if you've never done it, I'll walk you through it right now. How to do that. And when you get in there, you'll see not only your date of entry, you'll see your tier, you'll see how much service credit you've earned so far, you'll see how much you've paid in the system, and a lot of other stuff. So all you need to do is go out to acera.org, acera.org. Okay, and from any page, you can click this login sign up button. Now, let me just make a side note here. If you're brand new and you have only been here for less than 7 weeks working for one of our six participating employers, you can't do this yet. You have to wait to receive the welcome letter that we're going to send you in the mail, which takes about 7 weeks. And it takes 7 weeks because there's technology lag times, various things. So when you get the welcome letter at 7 weeks, it'll give you instructions on how to go through this process and set up your member direct account. If you've already been here for more than 7 weeks, then you can do this. Now, if you have, okay, so that's that aside. Second aside, if you have logged in here since October of 2024, you should already have a username and password, and you can just go ahead and log in using your username and password. If you forgot them, you can use the forgot username or password links here. If you have not logged in since that time, or you started since that time, we relaunched the system back in October of 2024. We threw out all the old logins. You have to make a new login. Okay. So the way to do that is to enroll. You click the enroll link here. And to enroll, you're going to need an enrollment PIN, a personal identification number that we're going to send you. So all you do is you click this link here, request an enrollment PIN. You put in your info and hit request PIN. This generates a letter in our office. One of my colleagues will put that in the mail, not email, US mail, so it will take a few days to get to you. They'll put it in the mail to you today, if you do it today. And so you'll receive your PIN in the mail, and then at that point, there will be instructions in there that will lead you back to this page where you enroll. You type in your PIN here, and then you fill out the rest of your info, create your username and password, create security questions, hit enroll, and then from there on out, all you do is you use your username and password to log in. So you just use the PIN one time. Once you use it to enroll, you can chuck it in the garbage because it's no good anymore. And that's how you do that. And I see a question just popped up. I definitely will get to that stuff in just a minute. Okay, so oh, I see what you're saying. You have a split tier. So you have membership in tiers 2 and 4, it sounds like. Some people do. There's a few different situations that will get you there. Some safety members have that where you have some time as a general member, and then you have some time in the safety tier. What we do is we do two separate calculations, two separate retirement formulas. Each based on the time worked in that position for that tier. And then we will combine the result of those formulas into one retirement allowance and send you one check in the mail. So that's how that works. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to introduce you to this slide. This is kind of the overarching theme of this entire presentation is that I want to help you get pointed in the trajectory of having adequate income when you go to retire, which if you are a new employee or you are in your mid-career could be a ways away, okay? So when so what we'll do now, I just want to introduce this to you to provide some context, and then we'll revisit this in detail at the end of the presentation. So for context, if we imagine the future, we imagine however many years from now you may retire, 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now when you retire, you're going to stop working your job. And that means you're going to stop receiving a paycheck from your employer. So you're going to need money to pay for your life in retirement. Where is that income going to come from? Well, you can kind of divide the possible income that you would have to pay for your life in retirement into these three broad categories. We have the first, which is the ACERA pension, or if you have other pensions that you're eligible for from previous employers, you can kind of lump that in this category. And so what we kind of think of there is that this is your paycheck for life. You're getting your employer's paycheck until you stop working, and then ACERA takes over and starts paying you the rest of your paycheck for life based on the credit that you earned with ACERA. So that's the first type of income. Then we have Social Security. If you pay into the Social Security system for at least 10 years, you will get to collect from the Social Security system one day, starting at age 62, the earliest, but you can start later for a higher payment. And so you can include that income as retirement income. And then beyond that, anything beyond that is your personal savings and investments. Okay. So, what financial planners will tell you is that in order to maintain your standard of living in retirement, all of your retirement income needs to add up to at least 85% of your working salary. Whatever you were making before retirement, you need to be bringing in at least 80% of that in these categories combined in order to maintain your standard of living. At least 80%, if not 85, 90, or 100. So we're gonna kind of target 80% when we're having this discussion. And the question is how that might sound at this point if you're a new employee or you're in the middle of your career, that might seem like kind of an onerous thing. Maybe may seem like a tall order. So how do we figure that out? How do we get to the knowledge, the assurity, or at least the projection of whether or not you're going to have 80% income replacement, what we call income replacement in retirement? Well, what we're going to do is at the end of the presentation, we're going to use some technology to figure that out. We're not going to have to do any math on this. Even though I'm showing you an addition here with a little bit of math, we don't have to do any math on this. We're going to use estimators to get the ACERA pension and the Social Security estimate. And then we're going to look to see if that gets you to 80% income replacement. And if it doesn't, then we'll look at how much more you might need to save and how to figure that out and where you might want to save that. So that's kind of how we're going to finish this whole discussion. And I like to show you this slide now to give you the context of what we're working toward. So that's what we're working toward. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a lot about the Sarah pension and how that works and how that's calculated and how you dial that in, because that's my area of expertise. And then when we get to the making a retirement planning picture, we'll add in the Social Security. And then regarding the additional savings and investments, I'll turn it over to our 457B expert to tell you in detail about how to dial that part of it in. Okay, so let's move ahead with the Sarah pension discussion, and then we will come back to this slide at the end. So first off, And somebody's asking the question, are the contributions we see on the Acera contributions page just the employee portion, or is that inclusive of the employer contribution as well? The employee contribution page and the employer contribution page are separate pages. So whenever you're looking at a table of contribution rates, you're looking at one or the other. Now, acera.org/contributions, plural, that takes you to the employee contributions page. So you can look at the employee contribution. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a link to get to the employer contribution page, and you can take a look at those rates as well. And people like to look into that, the employer contribution rate. I can just tell you right now, the employer contributes more than you do. And that's because they are trying to kind of catch up to make sure that we're 100% funded. They pay in more than you do. You can never get a refund of the employer contribution. So it's kind of like a nice to know what they're contributing. They're contributing more than you, but the only way that you access the employer contribution is by retiring from Acera and drawing a lifetime pension. If your plan is to take a refund of your pension account sometime in the future for cash, the employer contribution is never refundable, just so you know. Okay, so let me help you understand some pension math. Now, for those of you who do not enjoy math, this is the extent of the math, and I'm going to walk you through this. And you don't have to do any math. I'm just going to explain how our retirement calculation works. So, what you're seeing here is the retirement calculation, the retirement formula that Acera uses to determine what your monthly retirement allowance for life is going to be, your monthly pension benefit, which is the bulk of your benefit from Acera. Okay. So this is how we do it. We do this multiplication when you go to retire. So at the time of retirement, we plug in these three numbers, and that tells us how much your pension is going to be for life. So you can see that it's a multiplication, and so the higher any of the numbers are, the higher that the retirement allowance is going to be when you retire. And so the reason that I'm explaining this to you now, even though you're a new employee or you're in the middle of your career and you're not near retirement and you are wondering whether you need to know this or not, um, if you understand how this works, the way that you make sure that your retirement allowance is the maximum is by making sure that each of these three numbers is the maximum, by dialing in each of these three numbers. And there's a few things that you can do to kind of dial those in. And so I'll mention those as I explain how each one of these is calculated. So that's why I like to orient you to this now, is because it helps you do that dialing in over the course of your career. Okay. So I'm just going to walk you through this equation, and what this sentence is telling you is what this math is doing. Okay. So here's how this works. When you go to retire sometime in the future, 10 years from now, 20, 30 years from now, what you will receive as your monthly retirement allowance for life from Acera that you've earned, you will get a percentage of your highest salary for each year of service that you work. So I said service credit is basically time worked. So each one of those years that you work, you're going to get a percentage of your highest salary. Okay. So let me plug in some numbers, and I think it will help illustrate this multiplication a little bit easier. Okay. Let's say, for example, that the percentage of your highest salary you're going to get for each year of service is 2%. And let's also say, for example, that when you retire with exactly 20 years of service credit. You worked for 20 years as an Acera member, you earned 20 years of service credit, and so that's what we're putting in the formula for you. Okay, so what this means is that your retirement allowance is going to be 2% of your highest average salary for each individual one of these 20 years of service. So essentially, we're going to take 2% and 2% and 2% and line them all up 20 times. 2% plus 2% plus 2%, we add them all up. Essentially, what we're doing is we're multiplying 2% times 20, which is 40%. So that means that your retirement allowance is going to be 40% of your highest average monthly salary. Okay, so now to finish out the equation, And the example, let's just say that when you go to retire, your highest average monthly salary was $5,000 per month. So now we know this is what you were bringing in when you were working. Your retirement allowance is going to be 40% of that. 40% times 5,000 is $2,000. So this is your retirement allowance that you'll get every month for the rest of your life. If this was your example. Okay, in this example, you're achieving 40% income replacement from just the Acera pension, which is pretty good. So the bottom line there again is that because it's a multiplication, the higher any of these numbers are, the higher the age factor percentage, the higher the years of service credit, the higher the salary, that equals a higher monthly retirement allowance for life. So the way to dial in your retirement allowance is to dial in each of these numbers. You have some control, you have a little control over this. Mostly, what we're going to do is I'll show you the few ways that you can dial these in, and then when we get to the 457B discussion, that's really where you dial in your future retirement picture. So we will talk about all that, but I'll show you the few levers that you have regarding this formula. Okay, and people are asking, how do we arrive at each of these three numbers? That is a perfect segue into me telling you, going into detail about how we calculate each of these three numbers. Okay, so let's start with the first one, age factor percentage. What percent of your highest salary will you get for each year of service? It's not necessarily going to be 2%. That was just an example, okay? It might be different, okay? So how do we figure this out? Well, what we do is we use this age factor percentage chart. Each one of the tiers that we have, the tier that you're in, comes with a set of age factor percentages that is written into the law that determines your tier. Okay. So when you go to retire, we refer to that set of age factor percentages to figure out which one to plug into the formula for you. So what you're going to look for on this sample chart is just your tier. If you're a general tier 4 member, you're only looking at the general tier 4 column and so on and so forth. If you're a safety member, you're going to look over here. Okay. And the way it works is when you go to retire, let's say you're a general tier 4 member, you retire at age 60. Well, 1.80%, where tier 4 and age 60 intersect, is the percent of your highest salary that you would get for each year of service. So we would plug in 1.80% here for you. Okay. So that's how we figure out what to plug in. So you'll note that the numbers get bigger, the percentages get bigger the older when you retire. So this one, you don't have a lot of leverage here to dial this one in. All you need to do is wait to retire by getting older. So you just get older and the numbers get bigger. Okay. And kind of, if you work longer, what happens is that the service credit column increases and also the age factor percentage column increases because you're both getting older and you're working longer. So those kind of increase together. Um, you'll note a couple more things. One is that there is a maximum percentage that you can get for your tier at a particular maximum age, and that's denoted by the blue box. So if you retire older than that maximum age, like if you retired at age 68 or 69 or 70, you would still get the 2.50%. So the numbers stop increasing with your age at the maximum. The other thing to note here is that these are just a few samples of some of the age factors. They actually increase every quarter year that you age. So if this were the full chart, it would say 52, 52 and a quarter, 52 and a half, 52 and three quarters, 53, and so on and so forth. And there would actually be an incremental percentage increase that you would get by aging a quarter year. So every time you age 3 months and do not retire, you move up one notch in the age factor chart once you've passed the minimum age with the minimum age factor. If you do want to see what all of the age factors are, we have the full chart at acera.org/age. Okay. So that's pretty much all you need to know at this point. And if that's a lot of details to try to remember at this point, you don't really have to remember the ins and outs of that. Kind of the bottom line here, if you have one takeaway regarding the age factor percentage, is that an older retirement age equals a higher age factor percentage up to the maximum for your tier. Okay. So that's age factor percentage. And somebody's asking, how do you find that on Acera's website? You go to acera.org/age, and that's a shortcut to get there, /age, and it will take you right to this little post here. And then you can see all the age factor percentage increases for all the quarter year increases there. So that's how you do that. acera.org/age. And somebody's asking, can this percentage change in upcoming years? No. These age factors do not change. So these are set in the law for your tiers. So as long as you're in this tier, these set of age factors don't change. Now, if for some reason the state legislature decides to go back on the Pension Reform Act that they established in 2012 that took effect in 2013 that created Tier 4 and actually increase, allow people to go into a tier that has increased percentages, that's possible, but that is very unlikely, especially with the state of the economy in the world today. So I think that probably you're just going to be in the tier, you're going to retire from the tier that you're in. And somebody's asking, why are the um, general number of the tier two is lower than the tier four? For well, okay, so the comparison between tier two and tier four is that for any particular age, tier four percentage is lower. Okay. That's that the reason for that is because the state passed this pension Public Employees Pension Reform Act back in 2013 that created Tier 4. And what they did was they created this tier that had slightly lower percentages. Now, to make up for that, if you work longer, if you work a couple of years longer, you can max out a little bit higher than Tier 2. But for any particular age, the percentage is a little bit lower than Tier 2. Um, I don't I don't think these differences actually make a huge difference when you math it all out. Um, but that was the thinking there, because they were trying to save a little bit, save public employers a little bit of money. And somebody's asking, something said it says tier two INT. Is that tier two A or tier two B or what? If you are tier two INT, INT stands for integrated. That's just shorthand for that you are enrolled in Social Security. Social Security is a separate system, but we just keep track of like who pays into Social Security. And so you're Social Security integrated, which means that I'm assuming you're a general member, general tier two, and that's tier 2A. The safety has tier 2B, C, and D. Okay, so we talked about the age factor percentage. Let's talk about years of service credit. Service credit is measured in years. You start earning service credit when you enter a SARA, and you'll earn service credit all the way up until your termination date from your employer. Now, I said it's measured in years, but we actually calculate it down to the fraction of a day. So you'll earn service credit up to the last 15 minutes on your last day working for your employer. And if you look at your service credit number in your account on our website, it will say something like 5.678242. And all those decimal places are us calculating your service credit down to the fraction of a day. And you get all those decimal places in the formula when we calculate your retirement. So we don't use whole years in the formula. We use whole years down to the last 15 minutes on your last day of work. Okay, so you earn service credit during your regular work hours. That's going to make up the bulk of your service credit time. You also earn service credit during your earned leave times. These do not count against you when you mark these on your timesheet. You earn service credit during these times. When you're out on earned vacation leave, sick leave, if you get management leave, if you have some comp time to use, also regular holidays and floating holidays. You earn service credit during those times. You do not earn service credit if you're ever on leave without pay, you're not earning service credit. If you ever purchase additional vacation, which some of our employers allow, that's like if you earn 2 weeks, but you want to take a 3-week vacation, so you purchase an extra week. Whenever you mark a purchased vacation down on your timesheet, you do not get service credit for it. Now, having said that, if you need to purchase an additional amount of vacation here and there throughout a long career, 1 week or so here and there is not going to make that much of a dent in your final calculation. So I wouldn't sweat that. Okay, sold vacation, you don't earn service credit for. Sold vacation is where you take your earned vacation and instead of going out on a vacation and being on leave, you come into work and you sell your vacation back to your employer for cash. So you get paid for the vacation, but you don't go out on vacation. You don't earn service credit if you sell your vacation, only if you take it. You also do not earn service credit during overtime, on-call time, or standby time. Okay, so the first way I said that your regular work hours make up the bulk of your earned service credit. Also, your earned service credit makes up the bulk of your service credit calculation. And so the first way to dial in your retirement allowance in the service credit category is just by working longer. It's not, it's not the most fun thing to hear about how to dial that in, but if you do work longer, you earn more and more service credit. You do earn a higher retirement allowance. Okay, so that's the first way. But there is an additional way to dial that in, and that is if you have a particular type of time that is purchasable, you can spend money, you can pay us basically to get additional service credit. Now, it's only in these categories. You can't just buy like an extra amount of time just because you want to, like you want to buy an extra year time. That's called airtime, and the law does not allow for that. So you can't do that. But if you have one of these types of time, you can buy it as additional service credit, and that will increase the service credit in the formula for you, and it will increase your retirement allowance. Okay, so that's the second way to dial in your service credit. So let me walk you through these, and I'll walk you through each one. Many of you may not have any type of eligible time yet, but it's good to know what these are because you may incur one of these types of time in the future. And you'll note when I talk about how much is this going to cost that it's good to know that this concept exists, purchasing this type of time, because the best time to purchase it is as soon as you can, because the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets. And I'll explain that in a minute. Okay. So here's the type of time that's eligible for you to purchase. Kind of the theme here is that you were in a situation where the law did not allow for you to earn service credit for this time, but it does allow for you to purchase it later. The first category is basically time worked before you achieved your full-time retirement eligible position. So, first off, just as a side note, I'm not talking about contract time if you were working under contract, and I'm not talking about if you were working for a temp agency or an employment agency. Those are not purchasable time, amounts of time. So, if you were working part-time for your employer before your full-time retirement eligible position that you were hired into, just plain old part-time, not for a temporary agency, that is purchasable, that part-time work. Or if you worked in the county's temporary assignment pool, which is what TAP stands for, all that time is purchasable. And these other categories, there's some other kind of labels that they put on time worked before your retirement eligible position, including seasonal, intermittent, service as needed work, project work, per diem work. Those are all purchasable. Okay, now the second category is that 2 week lag time between your hire date and your entry date is purchasable. This third category is unpaid medical leave. This is for your medical condition only, not a family member's medical condition. And the way this works is that if you go out on unpaid medical leave, when you return from that leave, you can buy that time. So often what will happen is you have a medical condition, you go out on leave and you burn through all your sick leave. And maybe there's other leave balances that you can use as well. So you use all those up. You already earn service credit for that time, so you don't need to worry about buying that time. But then after that, you're just on unpaid medical leave. Okay. So when you return from that medical leave, that portion of unpaid medical leave is purchasable up to 1 year of unpaid medical leave per instance of purchasing it. So you have to come back to work, get at least one paycheck. You can buy that unpaid medical leave. Then you can go back out on unpaid medical leave for another year. come back to work, get one paycheck, and buy that whole year as well. So that's kind of the rules around that. People also will ask, what about FMLA? FMLA stands for the Family Medical Leave Act, and this is a federal law that basically says your employer has to keep you employed. Like you have to be able to still have a job when you get back from your medical leave. And there's a time limit on it. I think it's 12 weeks, but it perhaps can be extended. Um, and so that's kind of like a label that is put on top of this type of time. But if part of that FMLA time you're using your sick leave, you don't have to worry about purchasing it. It's only the unpaid medical leave portion. Okay, so next category, state disability insurance leave. This is where you become disabled or you go out on workers' comp. Workers' comp is included in here temporarily. And while you're out, often what happens is you will be paid a partial paycheck by your employer. So for that partial paycheck, you're already earning service credit. And then for the other part of your paycheck, you're being paid directly from the state's disability insurance system. For that portion of the time, you're not earning service credit, so that is purchasable when you return from that leave. The next category here, military leave during membership. This is not prior military service. Usually, what happens is, usually the case here is that you're a reservist and you're actively employed with one of our employers and you are called up to active duty. And so you go out and serve your active duty. Thank you for doing that. That's amazing. When you return from that active duty back to your job, that return from that military leave, you can purchase that upon your return. Okay, the next two categories are labeled as redeposits. The first one is a redeposit of prior memberships. This is where you used to be an ACERA member in the past. You used to work here. While you were working here, you were paying into the system, then you stopped working here. And when you stopped working here, you took a refund of your employee contribution account and you lost all your service credit. Now you're back working here again, and you're thinking, oh, I wish I had that service credit back from that original time I worked. Well, you can get it back. All you need to do is pay into Acera an equivalent amount of money that you took out originally, and you can get all that service credit back. That's a redeposit of a prior membership. Okay, redeposit of community property. So if you are married or you're in a state registered domestic partnership while you are earning retirement credit with Acera, that retirement credit, if you get divorced or dissolve that domestic partnership, is considered part of the community property that you negotiate the division of when you end that relationship. So some people will negotiate away a different part of the community property to keep their Acera account whole. Often what happens is that the ex-spouse or partner will take a part of your Acera account with them. And what they take is a portion of your employee contribution account, so the money, and then they also take a part of your service credit as well. And they take that with them. Okay, now, if they do that and they take a refund from their account because they are looking for cash, what happens is we will send you a letter in the mail telling you that they did that and give you the opportunity to redeposit an equivalent amount of money to get that equivalent amount of service credit back that ex-spouse took with them. And that is called a redeposit of community property. Okay, the last category, other California prior public service. This is where you used to work for another public employer in California, and that employer had a different pension system, not a SARA. There's a lot of different pension systems in the state. Okay. And you no longer work there, and you are not eligible to collect the whatever pension they offer from that pension system, usually for two reasons. Either one, it's because you didn't work there for long enough to get enough credit in their system to be able to collect a pension one day, or two, you already took a refund from their pension system when you left work there. So you're not eligible for their pension because you canceled your membership over there. Okay. So if you did that work and you're not eligible to collect their pension, you can buy that time as a Sarah service credit and add that to your Sarah service credit here. So for example, if you worked for East Bay Mud or Port of Oakland for a year, or another county or city, or an estate job for a year, you could buy that year's worth of time as a Sarah service credit, and that would increase your service credit amount in a Sarah's calculation by 1 year. Now, having said that, for those of you that have worked for another public agency in California and you worked there long enough to be eligible for their pension benefits, and maybe you're not eligible to collect it yet, but someday you will be eligible, probably based on you having to reach a certain age. It's probably more beneficial for you to leave that money over there and collect the pension from that system one day. Because if you try to take a refund from the system and use that to buy a Sarah service credit, this category is pretty expensive. And so it may not be financially advantageous. The other side note that I like to talk about here is that if you worked for another public agency and you have reciprocity with the Sarah, you don't need to worry about this because you already have credit over there with that pension system and you've linked it with a Sarah already. And so you're already good. You don't need to worry about buying it because you're already going to get credit over there. You're going to get credit for more time worked here. And we'll talk about reciprocity in the second half of the presentation. Okay. So those are the different categories of service credit purchases you can make. Now, that's the list of time you can buy. Let me just give you a quick list of time that you cannot buy. That vacation purchase time that I mentioned, you purchase an extra week of vacation here and there. You don't earn service credit for it, and you can't go back and purchase that time later. Okay, next one is if you're ever on leave without pay that's not medical, not purchasable. Contract time or temporary agency time, not purchasable. If you're trying to buy, going back one slide, this category right here, other California prior public service, and you still have your contributions on deposit with the other agency, um, you can't buy the time yet. You have to take a refund from their system before you can buy it here at Acera. And somebody's asking, is there a deadline for purchasing eligible service credit? The deadline for all of these types of time, except for the military leave, is that you have to make the service credit purchase before you retire. So that's it. You have a long deadline. You have a lot of time to do this. Now, you'll see in just a minute when I talk about the cost that you're probably going to want to not wait until retirement because it's going to get more and more expensive the longer you wait to purchase it. For the military leave during membership, there's a shorter timeline. You can check that out if you go to acera.org/service. You can check out what the deadline is for that. Okay, and somebody's asking, how do you calculate how much it would cost to buy back the service credit? Perfect segue into the next slide, which is how much it costs to make a service credit purchase. So here's how much it's going to cost. It will cost you, if you want to buy this time, whatever the dollar amount of whatever your employee contributions would have been had you worked the time. So for example, let's say you're trying to buy 3 months of unpaid medical leave. Now, had you been working here, had you been working your job, you would have been getting paid by your employer. But you're not. You're out on unpaid medical leave. You're not getting a check. Because you're not getting a check, Acera is not getting an employee contribution from you. Had you been working here for that 3 months, we would have gotten an employee contribution. Okay. So when you want to buy that 3 months of unpaid medical leave, the cost is going to be whatever that employee contribution dollar amount would have been had you been working here. So that it's pretty simple. So whatever you would have had paid into the system during that time, that's what it costs, plus interest. The interest comes in because had you been working here and had you made the contribution to the system, we would have taken that money and invested it. And in most cases, it would have earned interest. So you're going to have to pay the interest of whatever that money would have earned had we had it to invest. Now, if you get back from the leave or you make the service credit purchase pretty much immediately after the type of time is incurred, after this type of time is incurred, you probably won't have to pay any interest because we have 2 interest periods per year. ends on June 30th and December 31st. So every time one of those dates passes and you don't make the service credit purchase, it gets more and more expensive because you have to pay the interest that that money would have earned in that 6 month interest period. So the longer you wait to purchase service credit, if you wait 5 years, you got to pay 5 years worth of interest on top of the employee contribution amount. So that's why the time to purchase service credit is as soon as you possibly can. How do you actually purchase the service credit? And how do you figure out how much it's going to cost and whether you want to do this or not? Okay, so it's very easy. All you need to do is request a service credit purchase from us. You fill out the purchase request form at our webpage, acera.org/forms. So you just bring up that form, you fill it out, and you give us your info on the form, submit it to us, and then we will do the calculations and we'll send you a letter with the cost. You are under no obligation to make the service credit purchase, even though you filled out the purchase request form. It's at the time that you receive the letter from us with the cost that you can decide if you want to go through with the purchase. And you can even only buy a portion of it. You can decide to buy less than the full amount, going back to the list, for all of the types of time except for the redeposits. You could just buy a portion of all these other times. The redeposits are all or none. But the other ones you just buy a portion. And you have a number of options to pay for the cost of doing the service credit purchase. You can write us a lump sum check on a post-tax basis. You can roll over pre-tax money if you have one of these types of pre-tax retirement accounts. Or we can split it up for you over time and deduct it from your paycheck through payroll deductions, basically the easy payment plan. Or we could do any combination of those three. So you tell us when you get the letter, we give you a bunch of options on there, and you tell us how you want to pay for it, how much of the purchase you want to make, or even if you want to make it at all. And then somebody asked, what's the process to buy tap time? That's exactly the process. You start off by filling out, in any case, you start off by filling out the form, wait for the letter, and then decide whether you want to make the service credit purchase and how to do it. Somebody's asking, will vacation purchasing affect my service years? It will, but it's a minimal effect, and the effect is it will decrease the percentage that it will decrease your retirement allowance is by the amount of time that you have purchased divided by the amount of total service credit that you've earned. So, for example, let's say that you try to retire from Acera with 1 year of service credit. You can't do that, but let's say you have 1 year service credit, so 52 weeks, and 1 week of that time was purchased vacation. Okay, so you're actually retiring with 51 weeks of service credit. Well, it decreases your retirement allowance by 1/52nd. Okay, so essentially by what is that, like 2%? Now, if you're talking about a week of purchased time over 2 years, then it goes down to 1%. If you're talking about you purchased a week of vacation and you're retiring with 4 years of service credit, it's a 0.5% reduction. 8 years of service credit, 0.25% reduction. So you can kind of see how that's calculated. So you can see that it's a minimal effect, I would say. Okay, so we talked about the age factor percentage. We talked about the years of service credit. Let me tell you how we calculate your highest average monthly salary. I think somebody was asking about this before. Yes, somebody was asking about this a few minutes ago. Okay, so here's how we calculate this. When you go to retire, our software is going to find your period of highest consecutive pay from any time in your career. And this is known as your final compensation period in our pension lingo. Now, the vast majority of people, the highest period of pay is at the end of your career because you're being paid the highest rate of pay at the end of your career. But not everybody. Some people will have a highest period of consecutive pay earlier in their career because they're getting paid less at the end for various reasons. So our software finds your period of highest pay And if you're in tiers 1 and 3, that period of highest pay, your final compensation period, is your highest consecutive 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods. And if you're in tiers 2 and 4, your final compensation period is your highest consecutive 78 biweekly or 36 monthly pay periods. So essentially, approximately, for tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest year of pay, consecutive pay. And for tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest consecutive 3 years of pay. And I bet the majority of you here are in tiers 2 and 4. So it's probably for 99% of you, it's the highest 3 years of pay. So the goal of our software is to calculate your highest average monthly salary because we need to plug that in the retirement formula. So what it does is it looks at all those pay periods from your payroll records because we have them all on file, and it will look at your total dollars made during that highest 1 year or 3 years of pay. And then all it does is it's very easy math. It just takes an average by dividing by the number of months in that period. So for the 3 year uh, final compensation period, it looks at your total pay over the three highest consecutive years, and it divides by 36 months, and that becomes your highest average monthly salary. And that is the number that we plug into the formula right here. Multiply it by the other two factors to get your retirement allowance. Okay. So, what types of pay are included in this calculation? Because it's good to know how, kind of the nuts and bolts of how this is calculated. So first off, somebody asks, is it gross pay? It is gross pay. So we are calculating gross pay before any deductions are taken out. Now, there are four categories of pay, four broad categories that will be included in this highest average salary calculation. The first is your base pay. This is going to make up the bulk of your highest average salary. The second category is other pay codes. So some of you may have other pay codes, sometimes known as footnotes. It may be based on skills you have, maybe an education level, maybe certain types of duties that you have that are mandatory. All of these come with a different pay code. Some of these are included, some of these may not be included. I can't tell you off the top of my head if your particular pay code is included, but you can figure it out for yourself. If you go to acera.org/paycodes, there's a list for your employer, and you find your pay code on there, and it'll say yes or no, whether it's included in this calculation or not. If it is included, that will give you a higher highest average salary. So that is one way that you could possibly dial in a higher salary is by if there's another pay code that we're allowed to include in here that you can get. Another, the other ways to dial in to, that your salary increases are over the course of your career, you'll get cost of living increases. So that one just kind of happens. So you don't really have a ton of control over that. Another one might be raises. If you get a raise, that increases your salary. That increases the highest average salary we calculate in the formula for you. Promotions. So if you get a promotion, you apply for a higher position that comes with a higher salary. That will increase your salary in the formula. Another way to do it, which I'll talk about when I talk about reciprocity, is you could leave work in this county, go to work for another public agency that we have reciprocity with, and find a higher paying position there. And you can link the systems together, and that will give you the highest pay among all the systems will use your higher pay of all the systems linked together. So that's pretty much all of the ways to dial in the salary component of the formula. Except for if you're in tiers 1 and 2. There are two other additional types of pay that can be included in this calculation. Tiers 3 and 4, you can't do it. Tier 4, the law doesn't allow for you to do it. Tier 3, your employer doesn't allow for it. But if you are paid, if you sell your vacation, your earned vacation back to your employer during the final compensation period, that could boost your highest average salary. If your final compensation period is at the end of your career and you still have earned vacation left over on the books at that time, your employer will cash you out for your vacation, and that is a pay event that could increase your salary. Um, so these two things could boost the salary figure for you if you're in tiers one and two. I'm not going to take a deep dive into that topic because I can talk about that for like 20 minutes. But if you do want an explanation of that, I recommend going out to acera.org. And all you need to do is instead you scroll down to the bottom where we have this webinars and seminars section. And let me see the mid-career. There we go. So we have two options here, and you're in this one right now, the new employee mid-career webinar. So click on the pre-retirement webinar, and that opens this YouTube video. And all you do is you need to just fast forward through the slides until you get to the slide I was just on. It looks pretty similar, which is about 42 minutes in. And then at this point, I take a deep dive into that discussion of how vacation pay affects the salary component of the formula. So that's what I recommend for that. And somebody's asking, what about if you get a promotion to a higher paying position, but it's provisional? As far as I know, if you, I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. My guess is that provisional pay counts. If you wanted to verify that, because I don't know that for a fact. The best way to do that is to either email us or give us a call. You can email us by logging into your member direct account. So all you do is go to acera.org/login or go to acera.org, press the login button and log in there, and you can email us. We started having members only email us in member direct because it's secure, and we talk about financial information. Your social security number sometimes gets you give that to us or it's on one of the documents in there. So we want to keep that all secure. So if you want to email us, you can log into your account and email us, or you can call us at 510-628-3000 and get that answer. Sorry, I don't know that off the top of my head. Okay, and then somebody's asking, does it have to be highest pay while with the county, or do other employers count? Um, if you're talking about other public employers that have a pension system for which you've earned credit and you have linked it together by establishing reciprocity, reciprocal salary from a different system that is higher than our system, we will use the higher salary from that other system to calculate your retirement. So that would boost your salary in our calculation. Now, if you're talking about some other employer that you had, prior, that doesn't count. It's just either your Sarah salary or your reciprocal salary with a reciprocal agency. Okay, and one more thing that I want to mention about the salary calculation is for the tier four people. Whenever the state created tier four, and like I was telling you earlier, they did it with the Public Employees Pension Reform Act in 2012 that took effect on January 1st, 2013. They all not only did they lower the percentages in the tiers slightly, they also instituted this cap on the salary calculation. What the cap says is that there is this dollar amount that is calculated every year. It's based on this number from the federal government, the Social Security Wage Index limit. It says that a SARA cannot include more annual salary dollars when we're calculating your highest average salary than is the cap for that year. So the cap for 2026 for general members is 159,733. Safety members, it's 191,679. And if you have a higher salary than this cap, uh, let's say that you were going to retire this year in 2026, and you had a $200,000 salary as a general member, we will only be able to use $159,733 for this particular year when we calculate your highest average salary. If your retirement is not soon and it's a ways away, that the calculation isn't going to affect you until that time. And these numbers go up every year. So it could be, a lot higher, and the cap could be a lot higher in future years. But the one thing that we do now, in the present, while you're paying into the system and earning credit toward retirement, is that we won't take employee contributions on any part of your salary that we're not allowed to use for the calculation. So let's say again that you have the $200,000 salary as a general member. So let's say you were already paid out by your employer this cap amount like in October. Well, between October and December 31st, we would stop taking out employee contributions from your retirement check. So that would actually give you a higher take-home pay. And if you scheduled it a month in advance to change your 457B allocation to increase it so that all that money could go into your 457B plan, that'd be a good way to do it. Otherwise, it just gives you more money to save in your personal savings for the rest of the year. And then on January 1st, your employee contributions to Acera kick back in. More info at acera.org/limits. Okay, so that was a lot of info about Acera's retirement formula. Okay. So I kind of gave you some info about the different levers that you have to make sure that these three numbers are the maximum. We'll just finish out with this example of the whole thing put together. This is a Tier 4 general member. They are retiring at age 65, and they have earned exactly 25 years of service credit, down to the minute. So that all their decimal places are zeros. Your decimal places are probably not going to be zeros because you will probably retire partway through the year. So you'll get all that credit in the formula. So the 2.30% comes from the age factor percentage chart for Tier 4. For Tier 4 member retiring at age 65, we plug that in here. 25 years of service credit, we plug that here in the service credit column. Their salary was $6,000 per month as calculated by our highest average monthly salary calculation. So when we multiply it all out, their monthly retirement allowance is $3,450. Now, just an additional piece of information here is that what they are receiving as their monthly retirement allowance, again, is 2.30% of their highest salary of $6,000 for each one of these 25 years of service. So if we multiply just these two numbers together, the 2.30% over the 25 years, we get 57.5%. So that means that this monthly retirement allowance, $3,450, is 57.5% of $6,000. They are replacing 57.5% of their highest salary with their pension allowance, their retirement allowance from Acera, which is really good. That's a really good number from the Acera pension alone, because the Social Security will get you almost the rest of the way to 80. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, as I said. Okay, last thing before we take a break. This won't take too long. This will take just 2 minutes. I'll show you how to get a precision pension estimate. So this is kind of the culmination of our understanding of how the pension formula works. Is we know how it works in general. How does it work for you? What's your precision estimate for the future? So what you do is you go to acera.org, you click the login button, you log into your account. Once you get in there, you click estimate a benefit, and it takes you to this estimate a benefit tool. And I'll just zoom in here so you can see it a little bit better. It's going to ask you for two dates for a retirement scenario that you want a projection for. So you just think about a plausible retirement scenario. What happens if I retire at age 62 or 63 or 64 or maybe even 60 or 59 or 55? You can do all those scenarios. So all you need to do is plug in a set of dates that matches that scenario. Now, if You want a projection for going straight from active work into retirement. So you work your career and you go right into retirement. These two dates should just be consecutive days. So this would be your last day of work. This would be your first day of retirement, the next calendar day. If you want to do a different scenario where you stop working and you don't retire immediately, you defer your retirement to a later date, you can do that as well. So there would be a gap between these two dates. Okay. So you plug your dates in from your retirement scenario. And then you you may see your beneficiary here. If you have designated your Sarah beneficiary for your active member death benefits, you may see them listed out here, pre-populated. If that's the case, you can leave them in there or change the info. Totally up to you. And that's just for the purposes of this estimate. Like changing this doesn't redesignate your beneficiary. I'll show you how to do that later. You got to do it on a different form. This is just for the purposes of this estimate. Now, if you do leave your beneficiary in here, make sure check the date of birth because some of them in our system are incorrect and it could throw off the numbers. So make sure that that's correct. Um, and then for your first go around, leave all these boxes unchecked just to get like a baseline conservative estimate. You can alter your estimate based on these additional options, but just the first time through, just hit generate, and you end up with this PDF retirement benefit estimate. It's 4 pages. The first page uh, has a table that has your estimated monthly benefit on it. The second page has all of the numbers it used to calculate page one. So all that stuff I just talked about, the average salary date range is your final compensation period for the purposes of this estimate, your period of highest pay. Um, Often it's projected pay, but projected pay periods out in the future, but that's the range. And then there's a projected salary, there's a years of service credit, and then it gives you your age at retirement, and you could use that to figure out your age factor percentage if you wanted to. And so just to zoom in on the table on page one, your estimated monthly benefit, it does give you a member monthly benefit for each one of the retirement allowance options. These options are something that you choose at the time of retirement. If you want to explore what these do for you and your beneficiaries on our website, you could do that at acera.org/retire. There's a detailed explanation. You don't really need to know that right now. Your situation might be different by the time you retire. I like to tell people that in the vast majority of cases, people pick the unmodified option anyway. So you can just kind of navigate with your retirement planning by looking at this number because it pays the highest benefit of all the options. That's why most people choose this one. Okay, let me check this question. So, somebody's saying there is of course an automated estimate, which I'm showing you now, that's automatically generated. Where's the table I used to go to? Okay, so there is a table available. You do have other ways of estimating your future benefits. If you go to acera.org and you hover over members, and in the menu you select the third one down, planning your future retirement income, or the shortcut is just acera.org/planning. This is a step-by-step method of getting a full retirement planning picture. I will refer to this page later when we get to that topic, but step one does give you a few different options. Method one is the calculator that I just showed you. Now, method two does have these charts. This may be the chart that you're referring to. So, like if you're a general tier four member, you click the button for your tier. And it gives you this PDF where what we've done is across the top, we have different ages that you might retire. And down on this side, you have years of service credit. And you find where your retirement scenario would intersect. So let's say that you are going to retire, based on your trajectory now, when you get to age 60, you're going to have earned 20 years of service credit. So you're wondering what would happen with your Acera pension at that point. Well, this is showing you that you would achieve 36% income replacement in that scenario from the Acera pension alone. So then what you can do once you find that intersection is you can move up Diagonally, if you work another year, you're going to age another year and you're going to earn another year of service credit. So if you retired at 61, you get 39.9% income replacement. Uh, and work another year, you get 44% income replacement. Work another year after that, 48.3% income replacement. So that's how that works. Hopefully, it, is that the table that you were thinking of? Let me know if that's not it. There's also a manual worksheet. If you enjoy math, you can download our Excel worksheet and do it all manually. Okay. First off, there's a question that I want to address real fast. If I stop work, do I only move laterally? So back to that chart, that is correct. So if you were to stop work and not retire yet, and let's say you stop work with 20 years of service credit at age 60, so you would if you retired at age 60, you would have 36% income replacement, and then you're still going to continue to age before you retire. So if you retired at 61, you would have 38% or 40% if you retired at 62, and so on and so forth. In most cases, that is not advantageous. If you stop working and don't retire yet, and you're already eligible to retire, and you're just waiting for your age to increase. Um, yes, your retirement allowance is going to be more because you have a greater age factor percentage if you retire at a later age, but you're missing out on months, if not years, of retirement payments. And I think you'll find that the increase to your retirement allowance that you'll get from the age factor percentage is not going to make up for all those missed payments if you run estimates on that. So before you do that scenario, run estimates. Okay, let me help you understand retirement eligibility. We are talking about this milestone on the pension milestones chart. There are a few different combinations of years of service credit and age that get you to retirement eligibility. For tiers 1, 2, and 3, you have three combinations. I'll show you tier 4 on the next slide. So, your first combination for tiers 1, 2, and 3 is option 1. You're at least age 50 and you have at least 5 years of service credit. All of you already have 10 years of membership, so you can ignore that. And you are eligible to retire. So you can see that you can actually retire at a pretty young age, at age 50, if you have at least 5 years of service credit. So you don't have to wait until your 60s or 70s to retire, as long as you have enough money to pay for your life. Option number two is that as a general member, you have at least 30 years of service credit, or as a safety member, you have at least 20 years of service credit. You can retire at any age, even if it's younger than the age 50 you need under option one. Your third option is option three. At age 70, even if you have less than the 5 years of service credit that you need to retire at age 50, you can still retire. So if you only had 4 years of service credit, you can't retire under option number one. You can't retire under option two, but at age 70, you can retire with option three. Um, so you just have to wait until age 70, and then you can draw a lifetime pension based on that 4 years of service credit. It's not going to be huge, but it'll probably pay for a lot of your bills in retirement. Okay, now moving on to tier four. That was tiers one, two, and three. Tier four, you have two combinations that get you to retirement eligibility. Option one is that you're at least age 52 as a general member, or you're at least age 50 as a safety member, and you can retire with 5 years of service credit. So again, pretty young ages to be able to retire. Option number two is that you can retire at age 70 with any amount of service credit, even if it's less than the 5 years you need under option number one. Okay, so that is a pretty quick topic, retirement eligibility. Once you're eligible to retire, you can go ahead and retire from a SARA, draw a lifetime pension based on the credit that you've already earned, or you can keep working past retirement eligibility and earn more credit toward retirement. Okay, let me help you understand some additional benefits. In addition to the pension, we also offer healthcare benefits, disability, retirement, and death benefits. I'll talk about the first one and the third one. Let me just mention disability retirement before I move on because I don't have a slide on that. Um, if you ever in your career become permanently disabled and you can no longer perform your job duties, instead of applying for the regular retirement, what also known as service retirement, you can apply for disability retirement. It's kind of a separate track. We have a lot of info on our website about it at acera.org/disability. Um, you can also do the regular retirement. You can go ahead and retire with the regular retirement if you're eligible and apply for the disability retirement so that you're getting payments while you're waiting for the disability retirement process because it can take like a year. So more info on that at our website. Okay, now let me tell you about healthcare benefits and death benefits. First off, you'll notice the title of the slide is non-guaranteed benefits. So I've been talking a lot about guaranteed benefits, the pension, and so on and so forth. Um, these are non-guaranteed benefits. These are extra benefits on top of the guaranteed benefits. And we offer them because the county in 1984 decided to start a reserve fund that Sarah administers because they wanted to have their retirees to have extra money to pay for healthcare costs in retirement, essentially. So, our board of retirement, we have a separate board, they run this fund, and their whole goal in running it is to make sure that it stays sustainable. So, they may tweak the rules, they may reduce benefits, eliminate benefits. They usually don't do that. Mostly, what they'll do is maybe not increase a benefit from year to year in order to maintain the fund's sustainability. Everything is measured with an actuary, so they keep really close track of this fund. There's over $1.2 billion in this fund currently, so the fund is considered very sustainable currently. Um, but one of the things that they do to keep it sustainable is they have this set of rules for who can receive these subsidies to pay for healthcare. So this is just their rules on that. And they have set the rules based on years of Acera service credit. Now, reciprocal service credit with reciprocity does not count here. Okay, so it's years of Acera service credit, and you'll note that it starts at 10 years of Acera service credit. That you receive the first level of the medical subsidy, known as the monthly medical allowance, which is what MMA stands for. And then if you achieve 15 and 20 years of Acera service credit before you retire, you get more of a medical subsidy. But the dental, vision, Medicare subsidy all require 10 years. A supplemental cost of living adjustment is an extra cost of living adjustment on top of the vested one, the guaranteed one. So that's a good benefit as well. But all the healthcare benefits, you'll note, start at 10 years. So that's why I like to sometimes kind of say that you can mentally add another milestone to this chart, which is when the healthcare subsidies started, 10 years of service credit, somewhere on this chart. So maybe you've been working here for 9.5 years and you're thinking about going somewhere else and doing something else while in retiring from Acera. You may not want to do that. You may be around here another half year, get over the 10-year mark because this medical subsidy, dental vision subsidy, Medicare subsidy, that's a lot of extra money in retirement. This is paid on top of your guaranteed pension. So it's a lot of extra money in retirement that you would have to pay for your life. Okay, so that's the healthcare benefits. I don't do a deep dive on that in this topic. We do have more information on our website about that. And somebody's asking, is the monthly medical allowance just for you? All of those benefits only are a subsidy for you. You can enroll your family members, but they only subsidize your premium. So, so that's how that works. That's another rule to keep the fund sustainable. Okay, let me talk about death benefits and designating your beneficiary or beneficiaries for those Acera death benefits and keeping them current. And I'll just define these terms. Beneficiary is someone who gets a benefit. Your Acera beneficiary is the person that you designate to get your Acera death benefits. Um, So let me walk you through these. You'll note that the title of all these slides says death benefits before retirement. We talk about post-retirement death benefits in the pre-retirement webinar. For this one, we focus on what happens should you die before retirement. We it's pretty rare that we have a member die before retirement, but should it happen, there are death benefits available to your beneficiaries. Okay. So the first slide is if you are currently working, you're currently employed by one of our six employers, but you're not yet vested, and you died before you retired. Your beneficiary would receive a return of your contribution account and 1 month of salary for each year of service, up to 6 months worth. So, let's say you've already been working here for 4 years, they would get 4 months of your salary in addition to the contributions. Okay, then let's say you are vested. You do have 5 years of service credit. Your beneficiaries now get a choice. Option one is the same. Options two and three have a survivor's allowance. Option three is kind of a hybrid. It gives you a lump sum and a survivor's allowance. This is to spouse, state registered domestic partner, and minor children only. Okay. Now, that's the qualified beneficiary part. Now, having said that, there is a way that you can name any beneficiary for a lifetime survivor's allowance, which I highly recommend you doing. That is on the next slide. It's called the Advanced Death Benefit Election. We've only been offering this for maybe 3 years now. So all you need to do is check one box on our form, and that means that you've made this election. And what it means is that it basically does two things. It allows you to name any human or multiple people, multiple humans, as a beneficiary or beneficiaries for a lifetime continuance. Okay, you can't do that if you don't make the advanced death benefit election. It's only spouse, domestic partner, or minor children. This is anyone. You can name, and the minor children on this, it's not a lifetime benefit. The minor children on this, if you make the advanced death benefit election, you can name minor children for a lifetime survivor's allowance. Okay. So the way that you do that, if you are new and you've already filled out your Sarah Welcome form, you probably already did this because that box appears on the Sarah Welcome form. You've probably already designated your beneficiaries. We have language on the form that very much tries to get you to check the box for the advanced death benefit election. It says there's no downside. There's no downside to this. There's only an upside. So this only benefits you. So every active member should make this election. If you haven't made this election, we sent out a couple of emails about it in the last couple of years. But if you haven't made the election, you can always do that, and you can always redesignate your beneficiary anytime you want as an active member. If you need to change your beneficiary, you just do it, and you do it on our beneficiary designation form. Here's the shortcut: acera.org/BEN. So the way that you make the advanced death benefit election is you go out to your web browser, you type in acera.org/BEN. It's a shortcut to this PDF. First step, download the form to your device because you can fill it out electronically, and you want to do that where you can save it to your device. And that way you can make changes to it if you need to. Okay, so save it to your device. Once you saved it to your device, fill out all the fields. So this is info about you. Designate your beneficiaries. Many people only have one. That's fine. Just one beneficiary. There's enough fields for 3 beneficiaries. Designate a contingent beneficiary or contingent beneficiaries in case you happen to not have redesignated your beneficiary and your beneficiary, your original one, had passed away and then you die. We need a backup basically. So put those, and then all you do is section 4. You check that box. There is no disadvantage to making this election. Okay, so, and it gives you more info about it, gives you a website for more info. You fill out the rest, you print it, you sign it in ink, and then there's 5 options for submitting the form. Option number 1 is you can upload it into your member direct account on our website. That's how you do that. If you don't remember whether you've done it, you can just resend the form in, or you can give us a call, 510-628-3000, and we can tell you whether you checked the box or not. There's nothing in your account yet that says whether you checked that box or not. We haven't figured that out yet. Somebody's asking, can you leave your death benefit to your grandchildren? Yes. If you do the advanced death benefit election, you can leave a lifetime survivor's allowance to them if they choose that. Your beneficiaries are going to choose which option, so you don't pre-choose the option for them. But yeah, you can name your grandchildren. Absolutely. And I answered that question already. Okay, so somebody's asking what happens if you select a beneficiary and then your beneficiary dies. All you need to do is at that point go ahead and submit another beneficiary designation form. You can submit as many of these as you want, as often as you want. The shortcut is always acera.org/BEN and just redesignate your beneficiary. And then somebody's asking if you choose your kids as your beneficiary, does your spouse have to sign out of it? Yes. And that's California law, but the form has a section for your spouse to sign. And if you have a spouse, they have to sign the form regardless of whether you're naming them or not. That's just the California law. So there is a section on the form for that. And then finally, deferred members. If you stop working here and you don't retire yet, you become a deferred member. If you die in deferred status, the only death benefit option is a return of the contributions and interest. Okay, now I've already said this once. I'll say it again. Keep your beneficiary designations current. Um, if you log in your account, you click the beneficiaries section, you can see who you currently have designated. Um, if your beneficiary is old, go ahead and redesignate your beneficiary today by going to acera.org/BEN. Okay, so I was kind of hurrying through that because I want to get to these last two. I want to have time for these last two uh, sections, which are really important. The understanding career planning options and making a retirement planning picture. So, understanding career planning options. This is the idea here is that at some point in the future, you are going to stop working for your Acera participating employer. What are your options regarding your account with Acera, regarding your retirement? Well, I'm going to show you basically two options, one and two. Option number one is to just retire immediately if you are eligible. Option number two is to not retire immediately. And in option two, I'll show you three sub options. Okay. So, option number one, when you stop working here, if you're eligible, you can just go ahead and retire and start drawing your lifetime pension from Acera. And you're going to keep earning service credit right up until retirement. We'll convert, if you go right into retirement, we'll convert half of your sick leave to service credit up to a cap. Um, you can work after retirement anywhere else you want to. We don't care. We're going to pay you your lifetime pension for the rest of your life. Or you could come back to work for one of Acera's employers and you can have one of two options. You can continue your retirement payments, continue to be an Acera retiree. You're not going to earn any additional retirement credit. You're not going to earn a second retirement, and there's some restrictions on that. Or option number two is you can come back to work for your employer after you retire from Acera, and you can pause your retirement payments. This is a brand new option within the last couple of years. And if you pause your retirement payments and go back to work, you'll earn a second retirement. And you can retire from that second retirement anytime you want. And when you retire from that second retirement, we'll restart your first retirement. We'll add on the second retirement and cost of living adjustments that you would have gotten during that time. And it's a pretty good deal. It means that if you stop working here and you're like, you don't know if you're going to come back to work for one of our six participating employers or your current employer, you can decide later. You just go ahead and retire. And then if you return to work here in a retirement eligible position, you can earn a second retirement. So that's an option. Okay, so that's option number one is to retire, draw your lifetime pension. Option number two is to not retire immediately. So you stop working here and you don't retire immediately. And you have three sub options underneath this option. Okay. Sub option number one is to become a deferred member. Sub option number two is to become a deferred member and establish reciprocity with another retirement system because you get a job for like a different county or city or agency, public agency. Option number three is to take a refund of your contribution account. So let me walk you through each one of these. Option A, if you defer, that means that you stop working here, you have your termination date, but now you're not immediately retiring. So there's a gap, perhaps. If you retire later, that retirement date is going to be sometime after your termination date. Okay. So if you become a deferred member, that means you do not take a refund. You don't take option C. You leave your contributions on deposit with Acera. You're still an Acera member. You're a deferred member. Interest continues to accumulate. We don't post negative interest to your account. What do I mean by that? If we have a 6 month period where we post a negative return to our portfolio, we do not pass that negative return on to you. Your money is safe. We never have negative in your account. Okay. And if you look at the interest that we have earned historically over the years, you can, if you go to acera.org/interest, you can see our interest history. I cannot think of another place that has historically earned that kind of interest that there's no risk. So if you leave your money parked here, interest continues to accumulate. You can retire later out of deferred status. One reason that people might become deferred members is they're done working here, but they're not old enough yet. They haven't reached the minimum age to retire. Totally fine. You stop working here. When you reach that minimum age, go ahead and retire. And like I was saying earlier, it's probably not advantageous to wait and for your age to go up because yes, we'll calculate your retirement from the whatever age you retire, but it's probably not advantageous because you're missing out on retirement payments. And I recommend running retirement estimates for all those scenarios, and I think you'll see that. Or as a deferred member, you're on hold, you can come back to work sometime later in a retirement eligible position, earn more credit toward retirement. Or you could be refunded at any time. Let's say you stop working here and you don't know whether you want to take a refund or not. Well, leave your money parked here for a while. Interest will continue to accumulate. Sometime later, you can take option C if you want to. Okay. There's more info if you're thinking about deferring. Definitely read our page, sarah.org/defer, because there's more info and it walks you through different scenarios of when deferring is a good idea and when it's not. Okay, you stop working here, you don't retire yet. What's option letter B? This is to get a job in a different public agency in California and establish reciprocity, which is linking Acera with one or more other retirement systems. So if you get another job, like say for Marin County or Contra Costa County or San Francisco County or many cities in California, any job that uses CalPERS, CalPERS is the state system or any state job, you can link that pension system with Acera. There's a full list at acera.org/reciprocity. And the reason that you do that is because there are some synergistic benefits from doing that. The first one is that the service credit you earn under all of the systems combined is used for considering vesting and retirement eligibility. So let's say that you're a general tier 4 member, you're age 52, and you have 2 years of service credit with Contra Costa County and 3 years of service credit with Acera. If you don't link those two together, you're not eligible to retire from either system. If you link them together and establish reciprocity, you're eligible to retire from both systems, and you can go ahead and do so if you like. So that's the first benefit. The second benefit, I was mentioning this earlier, where all the systems are going to use the highest salary that you earned under any system. So let's say that you are working a particular job here and you see an opportunity in another county or city that is a public employer that we have reciprocity with that has a higher salary. Well, if you go take that job, you become a deferred member here. Okay. You go become an active member over there for that pension system and you link them together with reciprocity. And then when you go to retire, when Sarah does our calculation, we're going to use the higher salary than we would have used in the calculation if you had stayed working here at that lower salary. So you're going to get more out of Acera. So reciprocity, by doing that, it lets you get more out of each agency if you are able to get positions with higher salaries. And that is one way to dial in that salary component of the formula. Another couple of other benefits, it could make your contribution rate lower and it could put you in an earlier tier. There's more on that at acera.org/reciprocity. To qualify for reciprocity, all you need to do is these things. One, you do not take a refund from any system you're trying to link together. You leave your money on deposit with each system, your employee contributions. Number two is that you can have no more than 6 months between when you leave the one job and you start the next job. So you need to start the next job within 6 months. Number three, you don't want to have any more than 12 weeks of overlapping service. I say have 0 weeks. Some people will go on a vacation leave when they're leaving here, and they'll be in vacation status here, still on payroll, and they'll start a new job elsewhere. They're going to cash you out for your vacation anyway when you leave here. So just try not to have any overlapping service, and it makes it nice and clean. And number four, you have to retire from all the systems on the same day. And somebody is asking, um, you do have retirement with another county, but you haven't established reciprocity yet, and that's totally fine. You don't have to establish reciprocity immediately. You just have to do it before you retire if you want to. Um, so yeah, you could leave your contributions on deposit with the other county and not establish reciprocity. So that's another way to do it as well. And somebody's asking about a particular agency. Go to acera.org/reciprocity. We have a list of all of the different agencies we have reciprocity with. And if it's not clear, you might need to call that agency to see what pension system they use to provide retirement benefits to their employees. Okay, so you stopped working here. You're not retiring immediately. You have option C. We went through A and B. Here's option C. Option C is that you can take a refund of your contribution account with Sarah. If you do that and you're just looking for cash, you will probably lose about a third of your money to taxes and penalties. In order to avoid that, you would want to roll over that money into another pre-tax retirement account, and we can help you do that. There's a waiting period for this. It's not instantaneous, and basically you're canceling your Acera membership. You're saying, I don't want the lifetime pension. I don't want access to the healthcare benefits or the death benefits. I just want to take my money and go do what I need to do with it. So that is absolutely your right to do, to take a refund of your contribution account when you leave here. Just remember, like I said earlier in the presentation, that if you are eligible one day to retire from Acera and collect the lifetime pension, we're actually already going to sort of refund your money to you, but in the form of monthly payments. And we'll give you all your money back anyway in the first 3 to 5 years. And everything after that is like probably going to be, in most cases, way more money than you would get by just taking a refund because you're going to get a payment for the rest of your life. Okay, so we have just enough time for this making a retirement planning picture topic. And then any questions that are left up on the board, I'll try to answer. I'll try to type those in during the next presentation because I want to make sure to get to this part before I turn it over to our 457B expert. Okay, so making a retirement planning picture. So we're revisiting this slide. We saw this earlier in the presentation. Okay, so this is kind of the culminating theme of this whole seminar is looking into the future and getting a little picture of what your future retirement income might look like so that we can start making some moves now to make sure you're pointed in the trajectory that you want to be pointed in. Okay. And as I was saying before, earlier, financial planners will say that you need to replace your working income with at least 80% of whatever it was. You need to replace it with retirement income. And your retirement income kind of falls into these three broad categories. Okay, so how do we figure out right now whether through the combination of your Acera pension and Social Security, that is going to get you 80% or more salary replacement? Our 457B expert is actually going to try to get you pointed at 100%. but I'm just going to do 80% as an example just to start off with. Okay. How do we figure that out? Well, we can use some technology. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to answer some questions. Does the Acera pension alone get you to 80% salary replacement? Or does the combination of the Acera pension and Social Security get you to 80% salary replacement? And if it does not, then how much more are we going to need to start saving now in order to achieve 80% salary replacement? And then the final question we're going to ask is once we figure out how much more to save now, where do we want to put that savings or where do we want to invest that money? So we're going to answer all those questions and we're going to use some technology. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get some estimates. The first one is from Acera, so you get your Acera estimate, and the second one is from Social Security. You get your Acera estimate again. I showed you the screenshots earlier. You log into Acera, acera.org, click the login button, go to estimate a benefit, run your retirement scenario. What I'm going to suggest to start off with, the very first time you do this, and you will probably want to play with it after that, the very first time you do this, choose a retirement scenario where you are retiring at age 62. And the reason I say that is because that way you can see Social Security being part of your retirement income immediately and see the effect of that. Okay. So once you get that baseline, then you can start playing with these. You could try what happens if I try to retire at younger ages, 61, 60, 59, 58, and I can't get the Social Security yet until I reach age 62, but maybe I can boost between the Acera pension and the savings. Maybe that will tide me over until the Social Security can come in. Okay, so start off with a scenario where you're retiring at age 62 and then go from there. So plug in that scenario here in the benefit estimator. You end up with the Sarah retirement benefit estimate, and then you're just going to look at the unmodified option for now. So just use this number. Okay, so you take note of that. You just save this PDF on your device. You don't have to like get out scratch paper or anything and write it down. Just save the PDF on your device and just take note of the Acera estimate. Then you go out to Social Security. You get an estimate from them, ssa.gov/estimator. It looks a little bit different from this now. There's kind of a graph and some sliders, but it kind of does the same thing. It gives you various ages at which you would start collecting your Social Security benefit and how much you would get. And you'll note that if you wait a few years, you get more out of Social Security per month than if you retire at the earliest age. But we're just doing a projection here. We just want to see what happens at age 62 if we retire. You can do 63 or 64, 65 or 66 or whatever in the Social Security estimator and it will give you that. But just to start off, just look at the age 62 number. Okay, so now we've made a note of that. Okay. So we have these two estimates. So what do we do with these two estimates? It's $2 amounts. We don't really know, what percent income replacement we're achieving yet. So we have dollars, but we don't have percentages. So what I like to do, I think this is one of the easiest ways to think about it, okay? Is to use one of these free retirement calculators that is out on the web. Okay, so here are some examples, and the best ones for you all will be ones that allow you to plug in a pension amount and a Social Security amount, and then it will give you kind of a projection of how much you might want to save additionally, uh, taking that income into account. So these are some examples of calculators that do that. These are all free. And the reason that they're out there for free is because Vanguard, and these other companies, they want you to do the calculator. They want you to find out that you need to save more for retirement, and then they want you to invest with them. Well, you don't have to do that. You can just use their calculator for free. Um, so I'm gonna actually, this is a screenshot of the Vanguard calculator. I'm just gonna do that one as an example. I recommend trying out a few of them, and they will all kind of give you a different, maybe a little bit a different number, and you can kind of average them out in your mind. So it's all it's a little loose here, but I'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay. So your first step is to go to acera.org/planning. And that will actually walk you through this step by step. So after you get off of this webinar, this will walk you through step by step what I'm showing you here. And in fact, this video right here that we just created last year is also a step by step process. So you could follow the video as well. I'm going to scroll down here. It has you getting the Acera estimate and Social Security, and there's some links here. We've linked to these calculators for you so that you don't have to go searching for them. So I'm just going to open up the Vanguard calculator here, and I'm going to do a retirement scenario. It's going to ask you some questions. So let's say this imaginary Acera member is currently 35 years old. Okay, and they're going to do their first scenario at age 62, just to see what happens. Okay, then it's going to ask you for your current income. So let's say it's like 85,000. Much of your current income per year you currently save? Well, let's say it's zero. Let's say you save nothing so far. That's totally fine. We're about to figure out whether you want to save more and how much to save. And it's also going to ask you how much you've already saved. If you have, like somebody had mentioned, they have a 401k, you can plug that in here. If you have personal savings and investments, if you don't, leave it at zero. That's totally fine because we're figuring this out as we go along. This right here is your target income replacement percentage. I kind of recommend a minimum of 80. Just to start off with, try 80. Then when you start playing with the calculator, see what happens if you can bump up your target to 85 or 90 or 95 or 100 and see how that changes the numbers. Maybe you can get pointed in the trajectory of 100% income replacement without too much extra work. And then this last number here, this is basically your appetite for risk. And the assumption here is that if the calculator ends up telling you that you need to save additional money, the assumption here is that you're going to save additional money in a place that has the potential to earn additional interest, like compound interest over time. So it's basically saying, I'm going to invest the money somewhere to earn interest. And this number, five, somewhere between, I mean, two is super safe. You can find like CDs for 2%. 4% these days, there are some high return savings accounts with certain banks that you could actually get 4%, totally FDIC insured. So I probably wouldn't go below 4% here because you currently, that's just the financial situation now. So like 5% is pretty darn conservative. 6, 7% is moderately conservative. Sarah's assumed rate of return is 7% on our investments. We try to keep risk down. So I'm just going to use 6% for the example and go moderately conservative. But when you do determine that you need to save additional money, if you decide, for example, to save it in your 457B account, you'll have a bunch of options in there where you can diversify so that um it's somewhat managed risk. And the risk part of it comes in mostly in the short term. If you look at the history of the market, it tends to go up over long periods of time. Now, over the short term, you'll see downs and ups, ups and downs. But the general trend over the course of modern history has been for markets to go up. So if you leave your money invested over long periods of time and you look at your return on an average basis, it tends to be, and you're in a diversified portfolio, it's probably, going to tend to be somewhere around 6, 7, 8, 9%. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at 6%. Um, and then this is what's nice about this calculator is it allows you to put in the Sarah, let me see what the numbers were here. So it was 2046 from Social Security. So the idea is that we're receiving $2,046 per month from Social Security at age 62, and the Acera pension estimate was $3,007 per month. Okay. So that's our income sources. Now what it's going to show you is this graph. And this side, gray side, represents how much money it thinks you need to pay for your life in this scenario. And this side represents how much income it thinks you're going to have based on the income that you plugged in. This lighter green represents your Sarah pension. This darker green represents Social Security. And you can see there's a gap here. You don't have enough money to pay for what it thinks your expenses are going to be based on the numbers you plugged in. Because, and one reason here in this scenario is that the pension is not enough. Pension and Social Security is not enough to get you pointed at 80%. So what this is telling me, because there's a gap, is I probably do want to save additional money for retirement because I'm not going to get 80% income replacement through my Acera pension or and Social Security combined in this financial scenario. So now that I know I've answered the question, do I need to save additional money? And the answer is yes. Now the question is, how much money may I want to save? So I'm going to edit the results and see what happens if I plug in some savings here. What happens if I save $1,000 per year? And I'm going to recalculate it. Okay, so now the graph is a little bit bigger because it has added this bar for money that is being paid out in retirement. But it's not, I haven't quite gotten there yet. So I'm going to edit the results. What happens if I save 5,000 per year? Okay, that's a little more than I need. So if you're a big saver, you could stop there or you could refine it until they're about even. So I'm going to try 4,500 and see what happens. Okay, so now you can see they're about even. So what this is telling me is that in this retirement scenario, um, where I am 35 years old and I'm going to retire at age 62, and this is my current salary, if I save $4,500 per year, which represents 5.3% of my annual income, I will be pointed in the trajectory of achieving 80% income replacement by the time I retire, as long as I save my annual savings in a place that can earn, around 6% interest. If I invest my money in a in diverse investments that are fairly, that are not too risky, that would be the scenario. Okay. So this is saying that I should probably go ahead and start saving. Now, $4,500 per year may sound like a lot or whatever the calculator tells you, but if you take that amount, I recommend dividing it by 26 pay periods, and that will tell you how much you would actually need to save per pay period, which would be 173. So you would want to take 173 out of your check. Okay, now one thing to consider here is that if you do sign up for a 457B account and you choose the pre-tax option, the money is going to come out pre-tax, which means it's going to lower your tax liability. So you're not going to see what our expert Gene Hilliards calls a dollar for dollar reduction. Um, you'll probably kind of a good guideline is take about 3/4 of that amount. So I'm going to multiply it because taxes are about 25% or so. So I'm going to multiply about that by about 3/4. So the reduction to my take-home pay would only be like $130 in this scenario. Okay, so then now you have your number. Okay, I got to save $130 per pay period. And on a pre-tax basis, of course, or $173 post-tax. Okay, so can I do that? So now you sit down with your budget and you think, okay, do I have any room in my budget? Maybe you don't have $130 worth of room in your budget, but maybe you have $20 or $40 worth of room. I recommend you do what you can at the beginning. So get started somewhere, and you'll see that money come out of your check, and then you will get used to that lower paycheck. So once you kind of metabolize that lower paycheck, then you can think about cranking your savings up a little bit more. And once you get to what the calculator tells you you need to get pointed in the income replacement trajectory that you're looking for, then you're golden. Okay, so then what I recommend after you do that is don't just stop there. Come back like 6 months or a year from now. Get the projections again, plug it all into the calculator again. Make sure that you're still pointed in the trajectory. Maybe you got to adjust your savings up a little bit because you're no longer pointed in that trajectory. Maybe you got to adjust it. Maybe you need to adjust it down because you need more in your paycheck. But I think you'll find that over the span of your career, if you run these scenarios and you readjust your personal savings over time, you will find that when you go to retire, you will have achieved the income replacement percentage that you're targeting. Okay. So that's basically the whole thing. You have some levers that you can adjust to dial in your Acera pension, but the biggest lever that you have is this additional savings. Okay. So I'm gonna you there's a link in your email to these slides, so I'll let you go through the rest of there's just a few more slides in here about like different potential places you can save your money. I would rather just turn it right over to the financial planning expert. Um, Before I do that, I just want to reminder that acera.org/planning is the step-by-step page that walks you through this, and there is this video here that is also a step-by-step walkthrough. And so there's a wealth of information on this page about this process. Okay, so where to answer the question of where to save your money, um, where you might want to save your money is somewhere that you have the potential to earn interest. Because through the power of compound interest, you can not only beat inflation, but you can accelerate your savings. Okay. Um, One of the best places to achieve that is in the 457B account that you all have access to as government workers. So at this point, Gene, are you there?
I am here, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Outstanding.
Good to see
Outstanding.
you. So Gene Hilliard is our resident 457B expert. So Gene has been hired for many years by Alameda County to provide this financial education to county employees and also to help with the administration of the 457B plan. So deferred compensation and 457B are the same program. The
Mhm.
457B just refers to the type of account. And like I was saying earlier, it's kind of like a 401k, but for government workers. Um, and so Gene is hired by the county, but if you don't work for the county, if you work for one of the other five employers, 99% of what he's going to tell you applies to you. And there is information on that acera.org/planning page on who you talk to sign up for the 457B account. Um, okay, so let's turn it over to the expert. Gene will probably take about till noon. Is that right?
That's right. That's
All
right.
right. All right. So go ahead and feel free to share your presentation.
Okay, let me do that. There we go. All right, from the beginning. There we go. All right. Well,
Okay.
good
Thanks, Gene.
morning, everyone. As Mike had mentioned, my name is Gene Hilliard. I'm Vice President, Financial Advisor of Emerge Financial Group. We're a financial services company here in Oakland. We've been working with county employees with respect to deferred comp. It'll be 17 years in June. So, been a long time. Been a long time. So, I was hired to provide retirement planning, investment advice, and education. A little bit about my background. I'm a licensed stockbroker, financial consultant, been doing this for roughly 20, 23 years. Okay. Helping my clients create wealth, maintain that wealth throughout their lifetime, lifetime of their kids, grandkids. And I'm also a retirement counselor. And my goal as a retirement counselor is to help each and every one of you maintain your current lifestyle in retirement. And Mike had mentioned it earlier, and I'm going to go through a couple of those slides. But most financial planners, advisors, consultants, they say, All you need is about 70, 80%. In many cases, it's true. But I always say, hey, more is better. If I can get you, let's shoot for 100%. And then we can obviously we can settle for 70 or 80 or 90 if we need to. Okay. Um, you guys work for Alameda County, great government agency, offers a pension, which Mike has outlined throughout the presentation. Uh, if you stay with the county any significant amount of time, 20 plus years, don't quote me on this, but you're looking at roughly 40, 50% of your salary for the rest of your life. So, in order to get to that 100, all we need to do is, well, not all we need to do, it's going to be a challenge, but we need to cover that other 50%. And one of the best ways to make that happen is in your deferred comp program. The other important note that I want to make with respect to retirement, I want you to try to get out of your head that retirement is about a certain age. You need to be 67 or even 62, whatever. Retirement is about creating enough income to sustain your lifestyle at any age. Having said all that, if you're motivated to potentially retire in your mid 50s, and if you have 20 plus years to save, you could potentially make that happen in your mid 50s. So you don't have to wait until you're in your late 60s to retire. So I just want you to kind of keep that in mind. This presentation is kind of geared towards late 60 retirement, but just try to keep in your mind if your goal is early 50s or at 60 or whatever, let's try to make that happen. And I can certainly be an advocate for you if that's your choice. So let's talk about deferred comp. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about what is deferred comp, what are the benefits, how do you manage the account, how do you spend the money. I'll talk a little bit about there's some new features available in deferred comp that maybe you guys aren't aware of, but I just want to make sure you are aware. So key topics, we're going to talk about retirement income, benefits of saving, the updates, and how to enroll. Let's talk about retirement income. Where will your income come from? Or actually, you want to first pursue or, look into the future and figure out exactly what you're going to be doing in retirement. Are you traveling? Are you spending time with your friends and family? Splitting time between two homes? Maybe you just want to spend some more quiet time at home, right? But you want to kind of have an idea of what you're going to be doing in retirement. So, for example, if you're traveling, I typically encourage folks to tell me, okay, where do you want to go? How often do you want to go? How much is it going to cost you in retirement? So that's going to kind of give us an idea of roughly how much you need to have in the bank at the end when you leave county service to be able to travel like you want to. Okay, so it's important to kind of look into the future, imagine what retirement looks like, and try to turn that into dollars. How much does it typically take? We've talked about that. Mike talked about that. You need roughly 70 to 90% of your pre-retirement income. Many people ask me, well, Gene, why don't I need 100%? Makes sense. I'm living off 100% now. Why do I need just 70 or 80? And I want you to kind of think to yourself about what costs are going to go away in retirement. For example, do you still have to pay into a SERA when you retire? The answer is no. So that goes away. So there's a cost off the table. Are you continuing to pay into deferred comp? Not when you're retired. So that's another cost that's going to go off the table in retirement. And then lastly, do you still have to continue to pay into Social Security? And the answer is no. When you're retired, those costs will go away. And so many participants, many retirees can live off of less than 100% of their salary. Where will the income come from? Well, there's a number of different sources where your income's going to come from. Obviously, it's going to be Social Security. If you paid into Social Security any significant amount of time and your employer pays into Social Security, you should expect to receive something. Don't believe the hype about Social Security going bankrupt. That's not going to happen. Um, in my business, we really shouldn't say guarantee, but I'm going to say I guarantee you Social Security will not go bankrupt. If we continue on the same trajectory as we're doing now and we don't make any changes to it, then yes, it could happen. But I have found in my 58 years of life that our country tends to make those hard decisions at the last minute when we absolutely have to do it. So I'm confident we're going to come up with a strategy to shore up Social Security. So your Social Security will be available to you if you paid into it. Um, where else will you get your income? Going to come from your pension. You're a Sarah. Money's going to come from your deferred comp account, your 457B, same, or a 403B or 401k, whatever retirement assets you have on the outside. Maybe you have some income from investment property that you're going to live off of. Some of you, and I encourage it, will probably work a little in retirement, right? So, and I encourage it. You want to stay sharp, you want to get out of the house, you want to stay busy. So I encourage it. So these are the different areas where your income typically is going to come from. What are the benefits of the plan? It's easy. Money comes directly out of your paycheck. So you never have to worry about writing a check, right? Money comes directly out of your paycheck. We encourage, and Mike had mentioned, did an excellent job. You want to start with something that you're comfortable contributing and then just build on that year after year after year. Most financial professionals recommend that you invest roughly 10 to 15% of your salary. In my opinion, that's overkill for Alameda County employees. Why? Because you guys have this pension. So because you have a pension, it's not necessarily needed for you to really, really kill yourself, investing 15% or 20%, right? So I'd say, in my experience, on average, better numbers between 5 and 10%. Now, some of you may say, well, Gene, I've never heard of that, or I want to invest more. Hey, if you want to invest more than that 5 or 10%, then I'd say knock yourself out. There's a very good chance you could probably retire sooner if that's the case. And it also depends on when you're starting to save in retirement. All of what I just said goes out the window if you're 50 plus and you haven't saved any money towards retirement, then that all goes out the window. You really need to supercharge and put as much money into deferred comp as you can. What are the highlights here? You can invest a percent of your salary in deferred comp. You can invest a specific dollar amount into deferred comp. I typically encourage folks to invest a percent of your salary, not a dollar amount. Why? Because as your salary increases and you're using a percent of your salary as your contribution type, the deposits that go in automatically increase. So you never have to worry about it. Versus if you invest a specific dollar amount in deferred comp and you get a raise, you have to remember to go in there and make the change to increase it. So I prefer that you use a percent of your salary. Change it if you're currently in the plan doing a specific dollar amount, change it to a percent of your salary, or if you're just signing up, use a percent of your salary. If you're unsure how to turn a specific dollar amount into the percent of your salary, you want the number to be as close as possible, reach out to me and I can help you with that. Okay. 2026, if you're under 50, you can invest no more than 24,500 in deferred comp. If you're 50 and over, you can do the 24.5 plus an additional 8,000. And this is in 2026. If you're between the ages of 60 and 63, you can invest the 24,500 and then an additional 11,250. So that's if you're between the ages of 60 and 63. And then lastly, there is something that is called the 3-year catch-up, where you can invest $49,000 a year for 3 years prior to retirement. Now, if you sign up for this 3-year catch-up, you don't have to retire after that third year. You're not forced to retire. The only thing what would happen is you'd go 49,000 year 1, year 2, year 3, and then year 4, if you're going to continue to work, you'll revert back to the 50 and over catch up. No problem. Or whatever dollar amount you prefer to contribute to deferred comp. Some more highlights. There's no vesting schedule, so every dollar that you've invested in deferred comp is yours. Once you leave county service, you have access to this money. Investments, there are roughly 15 core investments available in deferred comp. If you like index funds, there's something in here for you. If you prefer to invest in a socially responsible way, there's an investment in here for you. If you're not interested in taking on any risk and you want like a savings account type of investment, there's something in here for you. But I'd say the vast majority can benefit from a fully diversified portfolio of small companies, medium-sized companies, large companies, some international exposure, some bonds. That's all available in deferred comp. So just wanted to let you know. Okay. There are three ways in which you can contribute to deferred comp. You can contribute on a pre-tax basis, a Roth basis, or you can roll over money into deferred comp. Now, when I say Roth, I'm not referring to a Roth IRA. There's no such thing as a Roth IRA in deferred comp. It is actually called a Roth 457B, or some people call it the Roth deferred comp account. Okay, so three ways: pre-tax, Roth, rollover into the plan. Let's start with the pre-tax. Most of you who are currently in the plan probably are investing pre-tax. And there's on the plus side, any growth is tax deferred. Your taxable income may be lower, right? So let's say hypothetically you make 60 grand working for the county and you put $5,000 into deferred comp pre-tax. If you make 60, 5 goes in, you're taxed on 55,000 versus being taxed on 60. So it potentially could lower your taxable income. So it's a great deal. So if your income is pretty close to the same as it was last year, and you got a tax refund last year, and now you've decided you want to invest in deferred comp pre-tax, very, very good chance that your tax refund may increase, assuming tax law is the same. Check with your tax advisor to confirm that. But I have found that many participants find out they're going to get more money back from the IRS when they invest pre-tax. This option works better if you believe you're going to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. And many of you may find yourself in that situation. You're working now, you're making X amount of dollars, fast forward the clock, you're retired, your income's probably going to drop. So chances are you're going to be in a lower tax bracket, but we don't know for certain. Tax code could change, but that's the whole idea. If you believe potentially that your tax rate may rise in retirement, then the Roth version probably makes more sense. Okay. If you believe your tax rate will rise in retirement, the Roth might be better because you're paying the taxes now. You are avoiding having to pay the huge taxes in the future. Okay. Now, I can't tell you with certainty truly what tax bracket you're going to be in retirement, right? So what I tell many participants, do both. Do a little bit in the pre-tax, do a little bit in the Roth. You're going to win on one of those sides, regardless when it comes time for you to retire. Okay? You're in charge. You pick the percent of your salary, you pick an amount, money goes in. This is very different than a SARA. A SARA tells you roughly how much you need to contribute, whether you like it or not. You have zero control over the investments, although the SARA investments are doing extremely well. But you have a little bit more control with respect to your contribution into deferred comp. You can start, you can stop, you can increase, you can decrease, you can change your investments. You have a lot more flexibility in deferred comp. All right. So I talked earlier about creating your own portfolio. If that's something you want to do out of the 15 core investments, if that's the case, you fall into option number 3. But I'd say the vast majority of participants fall in option 1 or 2. Do it for me or help me do it. So there's Fisher personalized retirement managed accounts for the do it for me. That's if you want to just offload everything and have someone else handle your retirement investments. But if you need help, you just need some guidance. Well, the goal maker models really work well. And I'm going to explain a little detail about goal maker, but you tell us what your investor profile is. I'm conservative, I'm moderate, I'm aggressive. You tell us the year in which you anticipate retiring. Is it in 2040, 2030, 2035, whatever the year is? You choose that. So I'm moderate, advisor goal maker, moderate. I'm going to retire in 2040. That may be a model that works for you. So that's the goal maker. You're getting a little bit of help. Okay. Here's how GoalMaker works, just like I talked about. You tell us your investor style, you tell us the year in which you anticipate retiring, and then you get asset allocation, automatic rebalancing, and automatic age adjustments. Let's go back. All right. What is automatic asset allocation? That's basically you're creating your own, they're creating a portfolio for you. Small companies, medium, international, bonds, cash. So you get a portfolio. Now, let's say hypothetically, your portfolio is an 80-20 mix. You have 80% in stock funds, so they're funds, and then you have 20% in bond funds. So it's 80-20. And let's say hypothetically, the following year, market has performed extremely well. Your 80-20 portfolio is now a 90-10. So the stock portion, the stock fund portion has kind of overwhelmed your account. So you're at 90-10. We instructed you to go with an 80-20 mix. We felt it was appropriate for only 80% of your money to be invested in stock funds. It is now at 90. So clearly that is way too risky. How do we reduce the risk? Well, we sell 10% of your stocks. So 90 minus 10 gets you back to the 80, right? And then we add you back into the bonds and cash. So that 10% is added, and then now you're back to 80-20. So that's what automatic rebalancing is. That can happen quarterly, so every 3 months, every 6 months, or once a year. That is completely up to you. As I mentioned earlier, you can roll over money from a 401k, 403b, or even an IRA. So you can roll money into deferred comp. And I would encourage that in many cases, but be thoughtful. Typically, when it comes to these types of retirement plans, bigger is better. The bigger the plan, in many cases, the better the investments, better the fee structure. Smaller plans tend to be riddled with fees. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. You know, these companies want to make money. And when your plan is smaller, it becomes more expensive. So it may make sense for you to roll money from the outside into deferred comp. Reach out to me. I will give you my fair and honest opinion whether or not you should roll over money. Okay. But again, it always starts with the size of the plan. Our plan is roughly almost $2 billion, 1.5, somewhere in there. And if you're part of a plan that's in the $20 billion range, I probably would tell you, you might want to leave that over there and then just manage those two accounts separately. Okay. Unlike, say, a 403b or 401k or even an IRA. Deferred comp has flexible distribution options. What do I mean by that? Well, you can withdraw money from your deferred comp once you leave county service at any age without a penalty. 403b, 401k, you'll get penalized for withdrawing money before you're 59 and a half. Okay, so that does not apply. That 59 and a half does not apply to a 457b. Okay, so great options in terms of flexibility. Once you leave county service, you can leave the money in the plan and let it do what it's going to do. You still have access to my cell. When you leave county service, you do have an option to roll the money to an IRA if you choose. You know, that's your choice. That's your option. Many people choose to roll money to an IRA if there's a certain type of investment that Alameda County doesn't offer. For example, some participants want to invest in real estate. They want to use their money and set up a self-directed IRA. That's not available in deferred comp. So it may make sense to roll the money out into a self-directed IRA and then buy real estate. Or maybe you want to buy individual equities. You don't want to invest in mutual funds, right? You want to buy the Apples of the world, the Amazons, the Nvidias. You may want to buy those types of stocks. Now, you will get those stocks in the funds, but maybe you want to buy them individually. So it may make sense to roll money out of deferred comp into an IRA. If there are any sheriff deputies online, I'm just going to give you a warning. If you retire from the county in your early 50s, for example, or you're 50, and you roll that money into an IRA, it's now going to take on the IRA rules in that you're going to get penalized 10% on withdrawal. So you got to be careful, right? I'd rather you leave the money in the plan, roll it out when you get 59 and a half, if that's the case. But don't expect to be able to withdraw the money without that penalty if you roll it into it, because it could be a significant tax hit because you're talking 10% penalty plus roughly 20%. So 30% of your money could be gone just like that. So be careful, be thoughtful, have a conversation with someone, including myself. It's not going to cost you anything to kind of find out, does it truly make sense to roll this money into an IRA? Okay, let's talk about the updates. I'm doing pretty good on time. Here are the updates to the plan. We're now offering an in-plan Roth conversion. I talked a little bit about the super catch-up contributions. This is the new Roth rules for certain high-income earners. I want everyone to pay close attention to this one. That's a big one. There's loans are available. You can borrow from your deferred comp as an employee. In the past, you weren't able to borrow if you retired or separated service. Now you can. And then also rollovers into the plan. Rollovers into the plan were not available to folks who have separated or retired. Now it's available. So I'm going to just briefly go through these new benefits. All right, let's talk about the in-plan Roth conversion. What exactly is that? Well, what you're doing is many of you, maybe you have a bucket of money in deferred comp that's all pre-tax. And you've heard, man, that Roth seems like a good deal because with a Roth account, I can withdraw the money without any taxes, right? Also in the Roth, you avoid that RMD, the required minimum distribution in the Roth. And you may be thinking, man, I wish I would have invested in the Roth, not this pre-tax version of deferred comp. Man, I really wish I could move that money from the pre-tax bucket into the Roth bucket. Okay, now that is currently available. You can take some of your pre-tax money, shift it over into the Roth, and now that bucket of money avoids the RMD, avoids having to pay taxes on it. What are the drawbacks? Well, obviously, in the pre-tax bucket, you haven't paid taxes on that money. You're going to have to write a check to the IRS to cover the taxes that's going to be converted from one bucket to the other, right? So you have to have money on the outside of the account to pay the taxes. Number one. So that's extremely, extremely important. Number two, whatever you convert is treated as income for that year. Hypothetically, say you make $60,000 a year. And let's say hypothetically you want to convert 40,000. Well, the IRS is going to view you as being making $100,000 in that year. So you got to be careful that potentially the amount you can convert may move you to a higher tax bracket. So you're going to have to be thoughtful. Many participants that I've talked to recently have decided, they're going to do this piecemeal. They're going to do a little bit of conversion every year in order to make sure they don't move into the next tax bracket. So, but the plan is the in-plan Roth conversion is available to you. Let me know, and I'll walk you through the instructions on how to make that happen. Here's a big one here. In the past, when you're 50 and over, you can invest that 24,500 plus the $8,000 catch-up into the pre-tax version of deferred comp, if that's what you want to do. You looking to reduce your taxable income, you want all that money to go into the pre-tax bucket. Rules that have now changed. All right, so if you're 50 and over, and your income from the previous year exceeds 150,000, So your income from the previous year, in this case, 2025, your income exceeds 150,000. That $8,000 catch-up contribution must go into the Roth, whether you like it or not. Okay, so just be well aware of that going forward. That $8,000 catch-up contribution must go into the Roth if your income exceeds 150. Okay. Earlier, I talked about the 3 year catch up that's available. Remember that $49,000 a year for 3 years? Then you can retire or you can revert back to the 50 and over. The catch up contribution in terms of Roth doesn't apply. So if you want 100% of that 3 year catch up money to go in the pre tax bucket, you can do that without a problem. Okay. Switching gears, let's talk about loans. As I mentioned earlier, loans have always been, well, not always, but probably over the last 12, 13, 14 years, loans were available for county employees when you're currently working. Now you have access to loans as a separated or retired employee. Okay, so I just want to make sure you're well aware of that because there, hypothetically, I'll give you an example. I think it was about 2 years ago, a participant wanted to buy a new car. The car cost 50 grand. They had to withdraw the $50,000 out of deferred comp, pay the taxes, and then go buy the car. So there's a huge tax liability for that. But wouldn't it have been nice if they could have just borrowed from their deferred comp so you avoid any taxes? And then you just make payments back to yourself. It's not like it's going payments to a bank or interest to a bank. No, you're lending money to yourself and paying yourself back with interest. So that's the loan feature. How much can you take out? 50,000, no, 50% or $50,000, whichever is less. And you pay yourself back with interest, depending on what the going rate is at the time you apply for that loan. Rollovers in. So as I mentioned before, you can roll money in from a 403b, 401k, or an IRA into the plan. So maybe convenience is important to you. Maybe you're potentially lowering your cost. It's available to you just to consolidate, to make your life easy. But again, reach out to me. Let's do a cost benefit analysis to see if it truly makes sense to roll that money into the plan. Okay. How do you enroll? Pretty simple. Write this down. Go to treasurer.acgov.org. Follow the prompts to get the enrollment form. Follow the prompts to get to the payroll modification form, and then you're off and running. And as I mentioned before, I prefer that you invest your money on a percent of your salary basis, not a dollar amount. So I would encourage you, go into the system, change it from a dollar amount to a percent of your salary. Okay. Another way you can gain access to the application or that payroll modification form is you can go to this site too, AlamedaCountyDCP.com. Click on, I think it's plan rules or plan something over to the far right. Plan resources, that's what it is. Click on that, and then that'll take you to the payroll modification form and the enrollment form. But it's a great tool. The online tool is great for you to view your account. So I also encourage you, create a user ID and password on the site if you're already in the plan or if you're planning on signing up. Create a user ID and password. You can play with your investments, move money around. You can look at your performance. There's a retirement income calculator on there that you can utilize at no charge. Obviously, every company has an app. Go on your phone, search Empower Retirement, and then download the app, and then you're off and running. All right. To
There's a
get in
question.
contact.
Can we start anytime?
Yes, you can start anytime. So you don't have to wait for open enrollment. So if you're ready to go for it at any point of the year. I just encourage you, once it's on your mind, make it happen
Make it
because
happen.
chances are you may procrastinate. So that's a good question. Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Uh, Getting in contact with us, just you can log online. You can call this 855 number. So it's 855-969-4572. Um, if you want to bypass the 800 number and you want to just get directly to me, you can contact my office at 510 562 6355. That's 510 562 6355. Or you can email me at G underscore or Gene dot Hilliard, Hilliard, at emergefinancial.com. Okay, so reach out to me. There's also some other financial planners, financial consultants that are at your disposal. So there's Mark and Daryl with Wells Fargo. There's myself, and then there's Dan and Jose with Empower. So reach out to us. If my calendar's booked, maybe you want to contact Mark or contact Daryl or Dan, etc. So um, we always, it seems, we're not totally booked ever. So there's always going to be some room to schedule an appointment with us. Okay. So with that, I'd love to entertain questions. What is on
Amazing.
your mind?
Thanks so much, Gene.
You're welcome.